Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the MHA What If with another fanfiction. This is the move of What If Deku was the missing goddess of the stars? All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Many stories and legends have been told of the three celestial gods, or as very few know them, Katsuki, Ijuru, and Izuku. Though the mortals know them as Dynamite, the fiery Alphan celestial god that brings them the day, the one who urges on wars and fighters, and the one who brings them the life of a good harvest. Red Riot, the vigilant Alphan celestial god that brings them the moon, the one who protects everything and anyone he sees with compassion and a will of stone, and the one who brings them the ever-changing tides of the sea. Deku, the sympathetic Amigan celestial goddess who brings them the stars, the one who will heal anything or anyone who may need it, and the one who brings the mortals their stories and legends, to not only spark hope in their lives but to tell the stories of his fellow celestials and the other gods. For eons, the three celestials watched over the earth far away from the mortals on Mount Tentai, a gorgeous mountain that held each of the three celestials' temples. Unlike many of their godly companions who not only held their temples on earth but even lived among the mortals. There are many more gods than just the celestials though, such as Ingenium the Alphan god of the earth and honesty. Frostburn the Amigan goddess of fire, ice, and pure love. Cellophane the Alphan god of loyalty, safety, and shelter, Creaty the Alphan god of creation and humanity, and Earphone Jack the Amigan goddess of music and kindness. And with living for so long, it is of no surprise that the gods found their own love, their own partners, their own mates, and their own families. While the stories could never truly say who all of the gods ended up with, there will never be a sliver of doubt that the three celestials became mates and happily married each other at the very peak of their mountain. And legend believes that the other gods joined them at the peak of their mountain to witness the gorgeous ceremony. Though there are also the shadows, horrible demons bent on destruction and chaos, not caring about the mortals or anyone who may come into their path. The leader of such evil was Tamura Shigaraki, a cruel and merciless demon who could destroy anything he touched. These monsters are exactly what the gods had been fighting against for so long, though no matter how bright their light, the shadow would always come back. And one day the shadows committed a crime so severe and so heinous that Dynamite and Red Riot nearly destroyed the earth itself when they held the final battle. But Granny, what did the demons do? Why did Dynamite and Red Riot nearly destroy the earth? Isn't it their job to protect it? The small child asked as he looked up to his grandmother with curious eyes. Yes, darling, it is their job, and that is exactly what they were trying to do 400 years ago when they held the final battle, the woman answered as she gently began to rock the small boy. But what did the shadows do? Are you sure you are prepared to learn about that, darling? It is not a happy tale like the other stories. Yes. I want to know, Granny, please. Very well then. 400 years ago, it was peaceful, there were no wars, people were at peace with each other, and the gods were no longer needed as the constant pillars of protection. The shadows had seemingly vanished, no one had seen or heard of them for decades. So, the gods no longer held their guards as high. It was a quiet and calm day on Mount Tentai. Red Riot, Dynamite, and Deku were peaceful in their temples. But as the stories say, there was a single blood-curdling scream before the mountain itself shook with such intensity that the stars nearly fell out of the sky. Though when Red Riot and Dynamite got to the source of the scream, they only saw their husband, Deku, lying in the hands of Shigaraki Tamura. They say that the two gods were so overtaken with blind rage and heartbreak that together they combined every power they had in them and used it to destroy the shadows. But in the process, they were destroying the earth as well. It took all of the gods to fight against them to finally bring them back to their senses, though once they did, they had already killed Shigaraki and the shadows, along with so many lives. But even when the two celestials came back to their own minds, they were still overtaken with their pain, and they cast everyone out. They say that the day the goddess perished, the stars never glowed as brightly and lost their guidance. They no longer stay in one place and directed the mortals, They now forever move and change, unable to be controlled or contained. What about the Dynamite and Red Riot? The stories say that the day the two celestials casted everyone out, including the other gods, the gateways to Mount Tentai closed. No one ever heard or saw of the two gods ever again. The elderly woman finished as she looked to the small boy in her lap. That can't be right, Granny. The child protested as the woman merely raised her eyebrow questioningly. What do you mean, darling? You taught me that the gods were powerful, that they could not be killed. They are immortal and invincible. Deku wouldn't die. The child reasoned as his grandmother only chuckled to herself gently. Oh, my dear, you have your name for a reason, but you are correct. I believe gods cannot be killed, but they can be lost. For you see, if we were to have truly lost Deku, then we would no longer have any stars, but we do, though like the stars he is lost. And he needs help to find himself again. The woman said as she gently ran her fingers through the small boy's light and fluffy hair. What do you mean, Granny? Instead of dying, Deku could have very well reincarnated throughout the past 400 years, dear. He could very well be anyone on Earth right now, but he is lost. That is why the stars are so lost and constantly changing. It is because they are following him wherever he goes. The woman explained as the small boy only looked at her with wonder. Do you think he will ever find himself? Do you think Dynamite and Red Riot know that it could be like that? Could they be looking for him too and we just don't know? Will the other gods help them, Granny? The child rambled as his grandmother only laughed as she shushed him gently. While I believe the legend is far from over, I think it will be up to someone else to write down the rest of the story whenever the time comes, dear, the woman said as she then handed the small boy a small leather notebook that looked as if it could very well be older than his grandmother. What is this, Granny? The child questioned. It is a book of stories. My great-something grandmother wrote this so very long ago. It is why I believe that the stories are true, and it is why I believe Deku is still very much alive. Promise me you will take very good care of it for my dear. The small boy then gently took the book in his hands as he traced the small print on the front cover. I promise, Granny. And I'll find out the truth. The small boy cheered as his grandmother only laughed. I believe that you will, Izuku. Zuku. Izuku. Izuku then startled awake as he then saw his old friend Denki Kaminari looming over him with a look that reminded him too much of the look his grandmother would give him whenever he took a cookie from the cookie jar before dinner. Hey Denki. Whatever it is that you think I didn't do it, Izuku stated questioningly. Denki merely face-palmed himself while the man then grabbed handfuls of notebooks and practically shoved them into Izuku's face. Oh, so you're not the one who stayed up past 3 am reading all and writing in all of these? The Omega questioned blandly, already completely aware of the true answer. Oh no, yeah, that was totally me, Izuku said with a bit of a giggle as he grabbed his journals and placed them all back on their respective shelves. Though when finding the very journal his grandmother gave him oh so long ago, he placed a small kiss on the cover before muttering a small prayer as he placed it on the highest shell out of reach from anyone except for him and the few people who knew about it. His grandmother was the very one who sparked his love for the stars, the myths, and the stories of the gods. And as promised, he took great care of the journal. Izuku Midoriya. Denki stated. As Izuku then froze up on spot, knowing good and well his full name being used, he was screwed. You know DMN good and well you should be taking care of yourself. That includes sleeping. I know, Cammy. I know, I promise I didn't mean to stay up late again. I just got so distracted. I'm excited about this new job. Izuku reasoned the best he could, while Denki merely sighed. Fine, I'm letting you off the hook. Just this once. Don't think I won't tell Shinso. Because so help me Izuku, I will get him to help me tie you down to your bed so you actually sleep for once. Denki threatened. But I promise I will do better. And hey, Shinso is so much worse than I am. Yes, about sleeping, but at least I can trust him enough to leave him alone and know he will still take care of himself properly, such as actually eating a meal for once. Denki shouted once again as Izuku realized he had absolutely no excuse for the eating thing. Finally, after what seemed like hours of scolding, and the two boys eating a late breakfast together, Denki and Izuku headed to Izuku's new job, the UA Planetarium. The UA Planetarium was world-renowned as the most spectacular planetarium ever built. It was built over 400 years ago by Mirai Sasaki, or more famously known as Sir Night-Eye. The man not only built up the amazing creation but left it in the hands of his descendants. And much like Sir Night-Eye, his descendants built up the amazing structure, making it world-famous. Nowadays, many people come from all around the world to witness the glorious display. Many reviewers say that the structure was blessed by the gods themselves, seeing as the stars look all too real, and the planetarium graciously tells the story of Deku, the star goddess' most amazing and glorious acts, the stories of how his stars guided travelers for millenniums until his tragic falling. Though still honoring him immensely, as many people still prayed at the small temple that Sir Night-Eye built oh so long ago that now rested gorgeously in the small gardens that the planetarium had. Izuku had gotten a job there as what his boss calls it, a storyteller. Mr. Nedzu had told him that his immense knowledge of the stars and the gods themselves made him the perfect storyteller for the planetarium, and the man didn't fail to mention that Izuku's approachable demeanor did make him perfect for working with people, especially with the many children that came to the planetarium. Not that Izuku disagreed with him, he had been told this many times by many other people, and he had learned that it was most commonly a compliment. And to say the least, the boy was incredibly excited. He had been studying the stars and the stories of the gods ever since that fateful day when his grandmother told him the legends and stories of the gods and gave him his most prized possession. And now, after 4 years of college and a lot of sleepless nights and days without eating, much to Denki and Shinso's dismay, the 22-year-old had gotten the job at UA, and while his friends couldn't be prouder, they both made it very clear that Izuku was to take care of himself lest he wants to be tied down to his bed. Good luck, Izuku, Shinso and I will come over later on to see your final presentation of the day, Denki said as he and Izuku came up to the planetarium's main entrance. Okay, Kami. I'll see you guys later, Izuku shouted as he went inside as Denki walked away and back to the train station so he could make it to his own job in time. Once inside, Izuku quickly went to the main office as he knocked gently on the oak door. Come in, came a muffled voice as Izuku walked into the office, only for Nedzu to already be standing at his desk waiting for him. Hello Midoriya. I'm glad to see you got here safely. Yes, thank you, sir. If you don't mind, Midoriya, I would like to have a cup of tea with you before our day actually begins, Nedzu offered as Izuku only nodded politely. Thank you, sir. I must say I was a bit overexcited this morning for my first day, Izuku explained as he sipped the tea, finding it to help calm his nerves. I see. Well, I completely understand. Though may I ask you something, Midoriya? Of course, sir. Did you study anywhere else other than your schools? I only ask for the fact that you seem to know almost everything there is to know about astrology and the gods of legend, Nedzu asked as Izuku immediately perked up at the question. Oh, well, I didn't study anywhere off of the record. My grandmother would always teach me about the stars and the gods, and I suppose I just took to it like a fish to water. It's where I felt most at ease. My grandmother used to say that I was a child of the stars because of that, and my freckles, Izuku explained as Nedzu only hummed in understanding. Well, I must say I would have been honored to meet your grandmother, but either way I am thrilled to have someone so bright on our staff, Nedzu complimented as Izuku only smiled while placing his now empty teacup on the desk. Well, thank you, sir, for this opportunity. I promise I won't let you down, Izuku said as Nedzu only hummed in agreement. Soon the end of the day came just as quickly as the day started, and just as they promised, Shinso and Denki both came to the last presentation that Izuku would give. That was really good, Izuku. Yes, you did. I see that you did take the right job, Denki and Shinso complimented as they met Izuku outside of the planetarium as the three then headed out to eat in celebration. I really like the job. It feels like I'm at home. And it's so much fun to help people learn about the gods and the stars. It's surprising to see how many people have so many misconceptions. It does make sense, seeing as all that stuff isn't brought up in school half as much as it used to be or should be, the Alpha stated, and Denki and Izuku hummed in agreement. But Izuku, did you talk to Nedzu about your grandmother's theory about Deku? Denki asked as Izuku only shook his head. No, I didn't, and besides my grandmother was a huge optimist, even more so than I am. She may not have liked the ending that Deku came to, so she decided to change it. I can't blame her, but I feel like it's a bit of a stretch, Izuku explained as Shinso and Denki looked surprised. Hey now. That most definitely isn't the Izuku we know. Back in college, you would fight someone if they made fun of your grandmother's theories. Now you're doing it, Izuku. Shinso shouted as Denki only nodded in agreement as the three then stepped into the restaurant and took their seats and placed their orders. I know, and I'm not saying they're wrong or anything, and I am most definitely not making fun of my grandmother Shin. I'm just speaking logically. Everything I was taught in school just proves that Deku is in fact dead. While I would like to believe that my grandmother is correct, it's just not the most logical explanation, Izuku reasoned, and Denki and Shinso shared a brief look before continuing. Izuku, for one, screw logic. Do you really think the gods were thinking logically when they created half the sheet they have? Or when Dynamite and Red Riot nearly destroyed the Earth when defeating the Shadows? Logic doesn't have shit to do with the gods. Shinso explained as Denki only nodded his head. I guess you're right, but still, come on guys. You really believe that in over 400 years the other gods wouldn't have found Deku by now? Maybe he doesn't want to be found? Denki inquired. Still, in every lesson about the Celestials, it is made known good and well the three were married and mates. There is literally no doubt about it. And if Deku still were alive, then Dynamite and Red Riot would be able to sense it and find him. And to put it simply, those two are the most powerful gods. If they haven't found their mate in over 400 years, then it's safe to say he is most likely not alive anymore, Deku reasoned as Shinso and Denki thought for a moment before they continued. While that is true, Izuku, maybe Deku did in fact die but was still reincarnated, though when he died it broke the connection he had with the other two. That's why they can't find him. And if he is immortal right now, that would mean he has no connection to the stars, so they can't sense his power either, Denki explained as Izuku only chuckled a bit. Denki, I know good and well you read that from one of my old high school theory journals. Izuku said with a giggle. Yes, I know. I thought I would be good to remind you, seeing as you have clearly lost your mind due to lack of sleep. I'm not losing my mind, Izuku defended as Shinso even raised an eyebrow at him. He says as he turns against his own theories that he has had since he was a child, Shinso stated as Izuku only pouted at him. After the three ate their dinner and Shinso and Denki bullied Izuku into going to bed, the months seemed to go by in a blur. Izuku easily grew into his new schedule while still keeping up with his theories and research. Denki and Shinso both were doing just as well as Izuku, seeing as they both had finally gotten together, and Izuku was of course the one to help Shinso ask Denki out. Though despite everything going practically perfectly, it didn't stop Izuku from going back to old habits and staying up until the early morning and then getting up only about 2 hours later and going to work. Not to mention the boy kept forgetting to eat. Denki, bless this man's heart, constantly checked on Izuku to make sure that the boy hadn't finally led himself to his own demise. Shinso honestly never blamed Izuku for his sleeping habits, seeing that he can be and usually is so much worse than Izuku when it comes to it. Though neither go easy on him when they learn that the boy hasn't eaten in only the gods themselves know how long, much to Izuku's dismay, especially when he tries to explain that he just isn't hungry. Not that Denki or Shinso make a note to listen to the boy's protest. Though strange as the trio's habits are, nothing would compare to what was to come. Just as any day would go, Izuku would only get about 2 hours of sleep the night prior before getting up and heading off to work without anything to eat as well, despite knowing good and well Denki would find out and he indeed would be scolded. Though once making it to the planetarium, he quickly noticed that there were hardly any people there that day, much unlike regularly when usually there seemed to be too many people. Midoriya. There you are. I was hoping that you may have slept in, so I would only have to call you, Netsu said as he walked over to Izuku, who was cleaning up his desk area, preparing for his first presentation of the day. Oh, sir, hello. I'm sorry, did you wish me to stay home today? Izuku asked as Netsu only smiled reassuringly. Why, yes, I had hoped that I could give you a day off today. Seeing as you have taken hardly a single sick day or vacation day since you've started here. And not to mention that there will hardly be anyone coming today, seeing it is a holiday. Oh, today is a holiday? Oh, I didn't even realize. Izuku muttered to himself as he fretted over if he should call Denki or not to see if it was a holiday that they had made plans for together that Izuku had most likely forgotten about. Don't fret, Midoriya, it is just one of those nonsense silly holidays that people made up so they could take a day off work. I normally keep this place open for anyone who wants to come, but normally no one hardly ever shows up, so I was hoping I could give you the day off. Netsu explained as Izuku only sighed in relief that he hadn't forgotten anything important. Well sir, I don't mind working today, I enjoy the planetarium, I hardly feel like I'm ever working. Though if you want to give me the day off, I'm more than happy to take it, though I will most likely be staying here either way as a customer more so than an employee, Izuku explained as Netsu only chuckled to himself. Well, I'm happy to hear that you enjoy working here so much, and if that is the case then you are free to stay here as a customer if you wish, though I very well plan to pay you either way. Netsu explained. But sir, I won't exactly be working. You shouldn't pay me for doing nothing. Nonsense, take this as my appreciation for your dedication and hard work these past months. Now go enjoy your day, Midoriya, I will see you tomorrow. And with that, the man left without letting Midoriya protest against him paying him any longer. Well okay then. Izuku muttered to himself as he then explored the ginormous planetarium. After what seemed like hours of Izuku looking at all the odds and ends of the planetarium as if he was just seeing it for the first time, he made his way out to the gorgeous gardens that the planetarium had. Izuku would have to admit that he had somewhat ignored the gardens more so than he meant to the last couple months he had been working at UA, though he was grateful that he was able to take today to truly appreciate them and all of their glory. Though he abruptly stopped when he heard hushed muttering and whispering coming from a statue that he had then soon realized was the famous Deku temple that Sir Night-Eye had created when he first created UA. He then saw two men standing at the statue seemingly praying, and immediately Izuku felt guilty for lurking on them, knowing that many people would come to the statue to pray for various things. Though Izuku would be lying if he said that he didn't stare at the men longer than he meant to, they both seemed ginormous. Izuku could very well tell the shortest they could be was 6 feet 3 inches and at the tallest, he had to guess at least 7 feet tall. Izuku also couldn't help but notice that the two seemed incredibly strong and very well built. But before Izuku would allow himself to continue staring at these men who were clearly doing something very personal, he slapped his cheeks with his palm as he quickly hid behind a tree and scolded himself for doing such a thing, though he couldn't help his curiosity when he finally picked up a bit on what the two men were talking about. Cats, I'm telling you we have to check here. Idru, why would we want to be here? This place. It's horrible. Cats, I know. Trust me, it hurts me too, but maybe if we find the old scrolls we can find out if Night-Eye knew something. He and Izu were good friends. He studied us his entire life and I know. He gave Night-Eye more knowledge than he let on. Idru, I know he did, but why would he be here? The stars are dashed. The stars are lost, Katsuki. They are trying to find him too. We have been following the stars for the past 400 years. This might be our best bet. We've been ignoring this place for too long. We might get lucky. Idru, believe me, I want to hope that he is here, that we find him, but dashed. No. Cats, what I'm saying is, he might be drawn to here. I mean, think about it. He blessed this place so long ago. His own magic could pull him here and then we can find him. So, what are we supposed to do? Wait here until he comes here? I will not be staying in this place for the next 100 years. All it does is revel in his death. They didn't know him. The man called Cats shouted. Izuku could practically feel the earth shake when the man yelled, and he knew that he should have just taken the day off. I don't want to be here either. I don't like being reminded that most people see us as hot-headed gods who will destroy them whenever we so, please. I just want to find Izuku, the man called Idru explained, and Izuku swore he heard the term, God, though he hoped it was just his sleep deprivation catching up to him. I know, Idru. I'm sorry. It just hurts being reminded. I know, Cat, but we will find him, then we'll bring him home, and we won't ever let him leave again. Izuku knew now that he had most certainly walked in on a conversation no one was meant to hear. Though despite the pounding of his heart and the blood that filled his ears, he quickly ducked behind every tree and bush he could, to stay hidden, and finally, the gate door to the parking lot was only about 100 feet away from him. though there were no trees, no bushes, no statues, nothing to hide behind. Izuku knew he would have to make a dead sprint for it and pray that the two men didn't notice him until he was already halfway to the train station. But who are you? Izuku flinched when he heard the booming voice yell at him. He didn't want to turn around, he didn't want to let these men know what he looked like or who he was. Though he couldn't help but feel a familiar yet unrecognizable feeling welling up inside him, he felt the intense and burning gazes of the two men. Turn around now. Izuku once again flinched at the tone, though noticing it was a different voice than the one who had yelled previously. And despite Izuku's better judgment, despite his every instinct telling him to book it out of there, he turned around and faced the men. When Izuku turned around, the last thing he expected to see was two very attractive men staring at him intently. He noticed that one had red and spiky hair that was held up in a small ponytail, while the man also sported an undercut, and now that Izuku was getting a good look, he could tell the man was incredibly well built. The shirt he wore was practically ripping at the seams, and if the man even so much as flexed, it would tear the shirt completely. Izuku then noticed his eyes. They were a deep crimson red that looked dangerous and deadly. Izuku then saw a scar that went through the man's eyebrow and down to the bottom of his eye, along with a few other smaller scars that littered his face, along with very shark-like teeth in his mouth. Izuku then made a quick mental note that the man was wearing a black short-sleeved shirt, army-style jeans, along with combat boots, and the man looked 7 foot. Izuku then quickly looked to the other man with blonde and spiky hair. Izuku quickly noticed that the man was built incredibly similar to the other man, though not as big. He wore baggy clothes that yet still defined his muscles spectacularly. Izuku then looked to his eyes only to find a scarlet red, not as dark as the other man's, yet they looked even deadlier and far more menacing. Izuku then noticed a scar that went from the man's jaw to his cheek that looked as if he had been slashed with a knife, though the blonde didn't have any other scars on his face, unlike the redhead. Izuku just the same made a mental note that the blonde was wearing a white shirt underneath a black leather jacket, ripped blue jeans, and black leather boots, and the man looked about 6 foot, while Izuku quickly took a mental picture of the men and made a mental note of what exactly they looked like, just in case he would end up having to go to the police and describe them. Though he silently prayed that the men would do nothing to give him reason to. Izuku, for once in his life, felt like time was going by far too slow. He felt like he had been stuck there, standing in front of the two men for days. Their intense stare did not change as he kept his head down, refusing to allow them to catch a glimpse of his face. He knew that in comparison with the men he was small, barely 5 feet 8 inches, he had a lean and athletic build, but he was obviously nowhere near as strong as the men in front of him, and he knew that he didn't look at all intimidating with his round face, freckles, and big green eyes. He had always been told that he looked too innocent and too good for this world. And while he had always thanked people for the compliments, he wished nothing more than for him to look at the least a bit threatening. Though he knew that it was the last thing he looked like. But if you think that you can spy on us and not even look us in the eye, then you have another DMN thing coming. The blonde one yelled, and Izuku jumped at the sudden noise. Unfortunately, when he did, he raised his head to look the blonde in the eyes, only for him to realize and mentally curse himself for it. Though to Izuku's surprise, neither yelled again. The two stayed still and silent as they stared at Izuku with wide eyes, their previous aggressive and intense glare gone. And Izuku, though he could not help it, he hated himself for how much warmth and safety he felt when he looked into their eye, when he knew good and well this could potentially be a horribly dangerous situation. But before Izuku could even comprehend it, the red-headed alpha was charging at him. And before Izuku could even make a move to get away, he was swept up off the ground as he was held in a strong and bone-crushing hug. Immediately the blonde alpha ran forward to the two. He pulled Izuku down back onto the ground, as he brought the small green-haired boy to his chest and held him there tightly. And poor Izuku had never felt so small in his life, nor did he ever feel so confused. "Izuku! Finally we found you!" The redhead cheered as Izuku only looked at the two in shock as he tried his hardest to comprehend what was happening. "In it, Izuku, you have no idea how long we have been looking for you," the blonde chimed in as the grip he had around Izuku's waist only tightened, and Izuku squeaked out of surprise due to the fact he didn't even notice the blonde place his hands there. "Well, now we can go home. I told Kat that it would be a good idea to look here." See cat, this is why we listen to me. The redhead teased while the blonde only grumbled as the redhead quickly scooped up Izuku and carried the boy bridal style out of the gardens and to the parking lot where Izuku then noticed the blonde unlock a black Honda Civic. And finally, Izuku's brain comprehended what was happening and he panicked. Of course we'll have to figure out how we're supposed to dash. But before the blonde could finish, Izuku quickly propelled his body backward out of the redhead's arms, as he landed with a thud onto the pavement, though not giving his vision the time to clear away the spots that danced in his vision as he quickly got up and began sprinting away from the men as fast as he could while the two shouted in surprise. Izuku thanked Denki immensely in his head for suggesting the boy go into track back in high school and college. Because from all of the training and with how much endurance the boy had, Izuku could not only run incredibly fast but he could last a while. And he hoped that he would at least be able to make it away from the men, and hopefully back to his apartment. Though the last thing he expected was for the two men to catch up to him within a literal second as they both kept pace with him, without even breaking so much as a breathe or sweat while Izuku felt as if his heart was going to explode. Izu, what are you doing? Do you not like cars? Or did you just want to do a run and talk like we used to? The redhead asked as if he was merely on a light stroll while Izuku tried to force his lungs to take in the air he so desperately needed. Though before giving either of the men a warning, Izuku abruptly stopped as he then ran down an alleyway in hopes to get to the other side of the buildings where he prayed there would at least be somewhat of a crowd. Both men stopped only a second after Izuku did, only to notice the boy run into the alleyway. Cat, why is he running from us? The redhead asked as he looked to the blonde who was glaring in the direction Izuku ran to. I don't know, but let's catch him. I didn't spend 400 years around these insufferable people just to lose him again. The blonde stated as the redhead only shrugged as the two then began to give chase to the Omega. When Izuku had finally made it to the train station, he looked around quickly. Upon not seeing either Alpha, he immediately got on his train and rode it home, only then realizing his bag was back at the planetarium. Basically the bag that held his phone, keys, wallet, and basically everything essential to him was in that bag and he didn't have it. Only when he got to his stop did he finally cease his self-degrading knowing that he had to get home. Though on his walk home he tried his hardest to blend in with the crowd and hide in plain sight. Though when finally reaching his apartment he grabbed the hide key only to notice that his door was unlocked. Though he quickly shook off his unease at the realization, it would not be the first time he has left his door unlocked due to his sleep deprivation. So, he calmed himself down knowing that there was no way that the two men knew where he lived. He had shaken them off before the train station and he would have noticed if his door was kicked in or if the doorknob had been tampered with. It was just an accident. Izuku walked into the house and just to ease his nerves he raised his nose and took a quick whiff of the air around him. Though when he had found there wasn't even a hair out of place from this morning, he relaxed as he then went digging through his drawers for his burner phone that Shinso had gotten him when he first moved into his apartment. The Alpha stated, in case you ever lose your phone, at least you'll have this so you can call us and we can come help. It already has both of our contacts, so just keep it around just in case. Izuku was honestly incredibly thankful for his friend's mindfulness, though he was in no way thankful for the fact he couldn't find the DMN thing. Looking for this? Izuku immediately froze at the voice. He recognized it as the man named Ijiru's voice. Izuku never knew he could feel so much fear by just hearing a voice. Izuku slowly turned around only to be met with two very set-off looking alphas, one of which was holding Izuku's actual phone and bag, while the other held the burner phone. Izuku was frozen. How the hell did they find me so quickly? How did they get here before me? How did they know where I lived? And why are they the ones who looked sad? Shouldn't it be the other way around? They're the ones who broke into my house. Izuku thought to himself as he backed himself into the small corner in his kitchen. Who the absolute F is Shinso and Kaminari? The one Izuku recognized as Katsuki asked, an obvious undertone of anger and malice hidden in his words. The last thing Izuku wanted to do was drag Denki and Shinso into this mess, so he did the first thing that came to mind. I don't know, just some guys who put their number in my phones. Okay, he was a terrible liar, sue him. Though the two alphas easily saw through the lie and they weren't happy. You think we're that effing stupid, Izuku? The blonde one yelled as Izuku flinched slightly, while the redhead only continued to scowl. Katsuki, let's make this easy, the redhead said as he then opened the burner phone and pressed Shinso's contact. Immediately Izuku paled. They were going to call them, and Shinso knew that if he was calling from the burner phone then something was wrong. Even if he would get them to hang up, Denki and Shinso would both still come. Though only when there was a click and Shinso's voice came through did Izuku finally register what was about to happen. Izuku? What's wrong? Why did you use the burner phone? Shinso's voice came through the phone as the two alphas only looked even more enraged. So, you're Shinso-chan? Just some random guy, Izuku? The redhead asked as Izuku only paled further. Wait, who the hell are you? Where is Izuku? Shinso shouted through the phone, while the blonde only took the phone from the redhead. We're his effendi husbands and mates, you pathetic mortal. The blonde snarled as his voice turned into a dark and soul-shaking echo. I don't even know either of you. And I'm most certainly not married or mated. Izuku screamed at the alphas, his adrenaline canceling out his fear. Though that didn't fly well with either alpha as they both looked at him completely shocked and honestly heartbroken. Izuku, come here now, the redhead ordered as he pressed forward towards Izuku, who only then sprinted away from him, further into his apartment. Sheet. Get him, the blonde ordered at the other alpha who was already chasing after the frightened Omega. Izuku hasn't ever even dated someone before, you lying BSS. Tell me where he is. And stay away from him, you fuckers, Shinso shouted as the blonde only growled. You humans never cease to amaze me with how stupid you can truly be, the alpha stated as he then leaned back on the counter waiting for his mate to retrieve the Omega. We humans? Who the F do you think you are? Shinso snarled through the phone while the blonde only smiled darkly to himself. You're close, aren't you? Let me guess, you'll be here within 10 to 15 minutes, HM? You'll find out then, you pathetic excuse of an alpha. And with that the blonde hung up the phone as a crash came from the other room. Quickly the alpha came into the other room only to see a broken vase, a few broken picture frames, and the redhead standing by a closed bathroom door. He's still being difficult? The blonde asked as the redhead only nodded while looking longingly at the door. Izuku, why are you insisting on making this so difficult? I understand if you're not completely ready to leave the Earth just yet, but you don't have to deny who we are just to stay for a bit longer, the redhead stated as the blonde only sighed a bit. And there was absolutely no reason to deny our marriage. You've been gone for over 400 years. You would think you would be excited to see us again, the blonde shouted as the redhead only muttered to himself. Deny our marriage? Are you both insane? You've broken into my house, stole my things, and threatened my friend, and I don't even know who either of you are. Izuku shouted through the door desperately, trying his hardest to not allow his tears to fall. Dean it Izuku we dash dot. Though before the blonde could continue, a small choked sob that came from the other side of the door forced them silent. Both alphas froze still, neither moving, neither making a sound as they both waited to see if they could hear anything else, though only for them to hear the shaking and broken breaths that Izuku was trying to take. Both alphas only looked to each other, both completely clueless as to what to do, though neither could deny the absolute heartache they felt at that very moment. Their husband, their mate, the one who had been away from them for over 400 years, the one that they had been searching forever since that fateful day 400 years ago when All Might had told them that Izuku could possibly be lost on Earth. And yet the very one who denied any relation to them, the one who ran from them, instead of to them, the one who screamed and hid from them, the very one who was crying on the other side of the door because of them. Izuku, please. Just come out and talk to us. Please, the redhead begged as the blonde only hugged him from behind as he buried his face into the other alpha's back. How do you even know who I am? Izuku questioned, though both alphas flinched at the break in Izuku's voice. Izuku, how many times do we have to tell you? You're our husband. You're our mate, just as we are yours. Did you expect us to forget you? What have you been thinking of us for the past 400 years? The blonde questioned as the redhead only reached behind him to grab onto his mate. 400 years? Now I know you two are insane. Izuku stuttered as the poor boy pushed himself closer to the wall of his shower. Insane? Why do you call us this? Why do you act as though you don't know who you are? We knew that you were lost, that's why we've been looking for you, that's why the stars are so lost, but there is no possible way you could forget us. Not with our marks on your neck. The redhead reasoned while Izuku only lifted his head slightly to stare at the door in pure confusion. Forget you? I don't have any clue as to who you are. I don't have any marks on my neck either, I'm not mated. And are you saying you've been stalking me for years then? And what do you mean the stars are lost? Are you trying to quote the presentations I've given at my job? Izuku shouted as pure confusion and fear coursed through him. Though both alphas only looked at each other shocked. Neither could understand what Izuku meant though finally, they continued. Izuku, we've been looking for you for 400 years. And we've been searching for you, not stalking. We have never seen a single one of these presentations you're talking about, but we know that you're lost and so are the stars, that's why you need to come home. The blonde stated as the redhead tried to open the door once again. You're talking as if I'm Deku. And I'm lost. Clearly it's you too. You've been searching for me for 400 years. That's literally impossible. Not to mention I'm 22. Izuku shouted as the two alphas stood stunned, frozen. Neither wanted to believe what they thought, but they knew they had to find out. Izuku, are you telling me you have no memories of being Deku? You don't know Dynamite or Red Riot. And you're an actual mortal? The redhead questioned while the other alpha only inhaled deeply. I'm not Deku. I'm literally 22. I give presentations about the Celestials and the other gods and the stars at the planetarium. And of course, I don't know Dynamite and Red Riot. The stories literally say that no one has heard or seen them in hundreds of years. Not even the other gods. Why on earth would I know the two strongest gods in existence? Izuku shouted, now even more confused than ever, not to mention his body finally catching up with all of his running, stress, sleep deprivation, and the lack of food in his system. Though the minute Izuku's statement left his lips, both of the alphas immediately froze and looked at each other. Both knew that this was their Izuku, but at the same time, he was no longer theirs. Though before either of them could take another step, they heard the sound of Izuku's front door being kicked in and a shout echoed throughout the apartment. Izuku! Shinso had immediately freaked out the minute the stranger hung up the phone, and he quickly told his boss that there was an emergency and he had to leave. He had more than a few questions, though he decided they could be addressed later. He quickly called Denki and told him what was happening while he ran to Izuku's apartment. All the while 1,000,001 questions flew through his head. Who were those guys? Why did they say they were Izuku's husbands and mates? Is Izuku hurt? Did they follow him home? Why did they have the burner phone? How did that guy know I was an alpha? Why did he keep saying I was just a mortal? What the hell happened to his voice? Am I going to make it in time? Shinso thought to himself as he sprinted mindlessly to Izuku's apartment. Denki, on the other hand, didn't even give his boss the say so that he was leaving. The minute that Shinso got off the phone with him, he wasted no time getting to the train station. Seeing as his job was farther away from Izuku's apartment than Shinso's. Though the Omega might not have shown it, he was on the verge of a panic attack. He was terrified to think of what could be happening to his friend. And of course, it didn't help his thoughts. What did they do to him? How did they find out where he lived? Are they trying to kidnap him? Are they going to kill him? Is Shinso going to make it there in time? Should I call the police? No, Shinso said not to. If they see that the police are there, they might kill Izuku. Despite being lost in his mind, Denki immediately noticed when he had reached his stop, and he ran faster than a bullet out of a gun to Izuku's apartment, prepared to electrify anyone for harming his friend. Surprisingly, Shinso and Denki had reached Izuku's apartment only a second apart as Shinso was searching for the hide key. Though when Denki realized it wasn't there, he didn't hesitate to knock down the door with one swift kick. Izuku! Denki shouted as he sprinted into the apartment, though Shinso immediately grabbed onto him and pulled him behind the couch as Denki glared at him slightly. Denki, we can't come barreling in here. We need to make sure Izuku isn't hurt. Shinso stated in a harsh whisper as Denki only glared at his boyfriend. Hitoshi, I swear on the gods themselves, I don't give two sheets who these men are. If they have even harmed a single hair on Izuku's head, I swear I'll zap them with so much lighting that they'll smell like cooked chicken. Denki threatened menacingly as Shinso looked at him warily, though not surprised. While I appreciate the dedication to protecting Izuku, that for one won't be necessary, and two I doubt you would outmatch either of us in a fight, young Omega. Immediately both Shinso and Denki turned to the voice only to find the ginormous Alpha looming over them. 1. How the hell did you know he was an Omega? 2. Who the absolute F are you? 3. Where the hell is Izuku? Shinso shouted as he and Denki both stood up fully, though still completely dwarfed by the redhead, with Shinso standing at 6 feet 6 inches and Denki standing at 5 foot. So, you're Shinso H? Threaded? Asked as his expression turned dark for just a moment before he smiled at the two of them. Well, let's just say it's a gift of mine. Also, Izuku is in the bathroom right now. He's okay, though we have a lot to work through right now. And I doubt either of you would be able to comprehend what exactly is going on. The redhead stated as Denki and Shinso looked at him wide-eyed. We may discuss whatever it is you all have to work through later. He most likely is having a panic attack right now, and if you do not let me go comfort him, I swear on the very gods themselves I will find a way to murder the both of you. Denki threatened as the redhead only looked surprised though not at all offended, though Shinso quickly went to stand in front of the blonde Omega in defense. I can't exactly argue with that, so go ahead. The redhead stated as he led the two to Izuku's bathroom where the blonde was still standing by the door. Cats, the Omega can help Izu, let him in. The redhead stated as the blonde only glared at the two slightly, though Shinso more so than either of them. Denki, not giving a second glance to either Alpha, knelt to the ground as he listened for Izuku's breathing before speaking. Izuku. It's just me, Shinso is here too. The weirdo said that you were in here, can I come in? I promise it will just be me. Denki stated calmly, though both the redhead and blonde went wide-eyed at the fact Denki openly called them weirdos. Neither used to being berated by anyone, let alone a mortal Omega. A few seconds later there was a small click and Denki immediately grabbed the handle and rushed inside of the bathroom and quickly relocking the door, not allowing any of the alphas to be able to peek inside. Immediately Denki saw Izuku curled up in a small ball against the wall. Denki then slowly knelt to Izuku, though saying nothing as he just wrapped his arms around the smaller Omega and brought him into his lap as he stroked his head gently, allowing Izuku to cry quietly into his chest as he leaned against the sink counters. After about 30 minutes both of the alphas grew restless at the fact that they had not heard a sound from either Omega, though Shinso only sat on a chair as he patiently watched the door, while also watching the two other alphas like a hawk. After another 20 minutes, there was a small sound of shuffling, and all three alphas immediately tensed at the sound. Though the last thing that was expected was for Denki to step out of the bathroom carrying Izuku, as Shinso then immediately came over to the two of them, though not before being growled at by both of the other alphas. Both of you can stop that. Be thankful that we haven't called the police. But I promise one more step out of line, the police will be the last of your troubles. Denki stated coldly as he walked past the two shocked alphas and into the living room, while Shinso followed after him. After Denki had placed Izuku on the farthest end of the couch away from the other alphas, along with placing pillows and blankets around him creating a makeshift nest of sorts, he turned around to the two alphas that were glaring at Shinso, while Shinso only glared back with just as much fury. Though Denki, not at all caring about whatever feud the alphas had created with each other, snapped his fingers and pointed down for them all to sit down, while Shinso sat next to Denki in front of Izuku. Both of the other alphas only sat on the small chairs Izuku had around the couch. You both are going to explain why you did this to Izuku, why you have been referring to Hitoshi and I as mortals? How do you both somehow know our second genders before ever being told, and who are you two? Denki demanded as the atmosphere became even heavier. Both the redhead and the blonde knew one thing. If they so pleased, they could kill the two of these men in front of them within a mere second. They could take Izuku back home right now and figure out what to do about his memories and how to reconnect him to the stars, and hopefully them. But they both wanted answers, and unfortunately for them, the two men in front of them had the answers, and they truly didn't want to give Izuku another reason not to trust them or run from them again. Fine, I suppose you can know. The redhead stated as he looked to the blonde who only nodded. For one, we didn't harm Izuku in any way, nor would we ever. Second of all, we have been referring to you both as mortals because that is what you both are. Third of all, we know your second gender because it is obvious to us, and as I said before, it's a gift of sorts. And lastly, I am Red Riot, god of the moon, tides, and protection. He is Dynamite, god of the sun, war, and harvest. The redhead stated as the two in front of him only looked at him shocked before Shinso burst into laughter. I'm sorry, but you really expect us to believe that you two are Dynamite and Red Riot? No offense, but you guys don't exactly seem like them. Shinso stated, as Denki only looked at the two with a deadpan expression, clearly not believing them either. I don't think I have ever met mortals as bold and stupid as the two of you. The blonde stated as he stood only for the other alpha to join him. Immediately Shinso stood up as well while Denki placed himself closer to Izuku, who was still sleeping soundly despite the situation in front of him. Clearly you both need to be given visual confirmation, maybe then you'd learn to have some respect. The blonde stated as his voice once again turned to the dark and soul-shaking echo that not only shook the two in front of him but shook the entire apartment, as Shinso and Denki looked at him wide-eyed. And in a bright flash of red, the two alphas that had stood in front of Shinso and Denki turned into two much larger versions of themselves, except completely different. And it left the other two in shock as they gazed at the gods in front of them. Instead of the regular outfit Red Riot was wearing, he was now adorned in an outfit that was shirtless with black sleeves that seemed to connect to two red shoulder pieces that had spikes growing out of them, along with a red tattered cape that hugged his belt tightly, while his belt itself was a deep silver color with a white glowing moon clip, along with black baggy breaths that were hugged tightly at his caliph by his red combat boots. While his hair had grown from its small ponytail to a flowing length that still seemed to spike here and there. While his face was now adorned with a black headpiece that wrapped around his jaw up to his hairline like a crown of sorts. His eyes that had already seemed intimidating now held specks of silver and white that only seemed to make him more threatening. Not to mention it looked as if the man had grown another 2 feet as he now stood at 9 feet 0 inches. And in place of the regular outfit Dynamite was wearing, he was now dressed in a black sleeveless shirt that had a deep V-neck along with what seemed to be a metal shoulder piece, while 2 dark orange stripes went across his chest as the shirt hugged his figure tightly, showing off his incredibly large figure, while there were 2 large army green and silver gauntlets at his wrist that connected to his similar colored gloves. While black baggy breaths were hugged tightly by his belt that was a bright orange color along with a yellow glowing sun clip. While the belt had 2 straps that went down to his lower thigh where they hugged his legs, as his large black and orange combat boots went up to his knees along with silver's guards at his knees. While his face was now adorned with a black mask that went from his nose to his hairline as 2 spikes sprouted from behind his head like a crown of sorts. While his eyes, still their bright scarlet color, now held hints of yellow and orange that only made him seem more menacing. Not to mention he had as well grown at least 2 feet as he now stood at 8 feet 10 inches. As the 2 gods stood there in all their glory, both Denki and Shinso were left speechless as Dynamite only smirked at their bewilderment. Do you want to test us still, mortal? Dynamite questioned as Denki and Shinso then looked to themselves now fully calmed down. How did you hide your aura? And your sense? Most gods can barely hide it. It's nearly impossible not to sense it somehow. Shinso questioned as both Red Riot and Dynamite were caught off guard by the question. How does a mortal know about that? Have you met another god before? Red Riot questioned as Shinso then looked to Denki, who only nodded. Then in a similar though nowhere near as powerful, a flash of light, Denki and Shinso stood now releasing their own sense and auras though neither growing nor changing in appearance. I see demigods. Dynamite stated with a click of his tongue. Who are your gods? Dynamite asked as Denki and Shinso only stood and looked to the gods. I am the son of Eraserhead, the goddess of death, and Hisashi Yamada, though I changed my last name when I was adopted by my uncle and aunt when my father joined my mother in the Underworld. Shinso stated as the 2 gods only hummed in understanding. I am the son of the god of thunder and storms. Denki stated. Both gods only nodded towards Denki. Now answer the question. How did you hide your sense and auras? It's easy for demigods and mortals, but I've never met gods who can do it. Denki questioned as the two gods only looked to each other. Well, it's clear you know about us, and I presume you know we are not exactly weak gods. Red Riot stated as Shinso and Denki only nodded. We use our own magic to mask it and regular scent patches at well, Dynamite stated as Denki and Shinso looked to each other questioningly. Why would you hide it? Would it not be simpler to allow people to know who you are? Especially the other gods? Could they not have helped you in whatever it was that you were doing? Denki questioned as the two gods only looked away from the demigods as they both sighed, now being reminded of their old friends. We didn't want their help, we needed to complete our mission of sorts on our own, Red Riot stated as Shinso and Denki only looked at them questioningly. And what did your mission have to do with Izuku? Shinso asked as the two gods only looked down in shame or pain. Neither demigod could tell. They're demigods' cats, it's fine to tell them. Besides, they already know Izuku's name, Red Riot whispered to the other god as the blonde merely sighed and looked back to the two demigods who were staring at them. He's Deku. Dynamite stated as Shinso and Denki both looked at the two wide-eyed and honestly unbelieving. Okay, maybe not so blunt. Red Riot muttered as the two demigods then looked to the still sleeping Omega and then back at the gods with pure confusion and disbelief. I think you have the wrong man. Denki stated as both gods only grumbled. Though before given the chance to explain, Denki raised his hand, halting the gods with looks of surprise. I have been around him since we were children, and I know his scent like the back of my hand. He most definitely is not a god. Not to mention his aura is that of immortals. Denki explained as Shinso only nodded. We realized that a few minutes ago. Red Riot stated, though Dynamite continued. But he is Deku. We know our mate when we see him. The only reason he is perceived as immortal is that he is stuck in the reincarnation CYCL, and because of what he did. But believe me, we've been searching for 400 years and we've never seen any mortal who even remotely looks like him. So, it wasn't hard to tell who he was. Dynamite explained, though the two demigods looked at him skeptically at the mention of the undefined. While I agree with you, Izuku does have a very unique look to him. But then why have you not found him long before now? It's been far over 400 years since Deku's death. Shinso stated as the two other alphas growled lowly in their throats, which in turn caused the ground to shake lightly. And maybe stop causing mini earthquakes? Someone will notice soon. And if they call the police, how are we supposed to explain this? Denki exclaimed as he motioned to the rec department. Both the gods only sighed while Shinso placed a hand on Denki's shoulder to settle him. We couldn't find him because apparently his connection to us and the stars have been broken. Red Riot explained as Shinso only raised an eyebrow at them. What do you mean apparently? Did you just figure this out? Shinso asked, while the two gods only bared their teeth at him, though he was left unfazed by their aggression towards him. Yes, technically we just figured out his connection to us was severed. Along with all of his memories of being Deku. We only thought that his connection to the stars was broken, but apparently his connection to us was as broken as well. Dynamite explained, while Denki only looked away in thought for a moment. Why did you both think he was still connected to you? If you could not sense him? Denki questioned. We thought he was still connected to us because we still felt his presence. Not to mention we will feel a connection to him so long as the stars are in the sky. Red Riot explained. Wait, you said that you've been searching for 400 years? Deku was killed at the very least 455 years ago. Why did you only start searching decades later? Shinso questioned. Though both gods only clenched their fists as they both growled loud and low, which soon became the dark and soul-shaking echo from before, which caused the entire apartment building to rattle as Denki gripped onto Izuku, who then awoke from the sound. For the love of yourselves, stop it. People are going to think there's an earthquake. Denki yelled as Izuku then clung to him with a death grip upon seeing the alphas, not to mention their appearance and far bigger size did not help at all. Though only when the alphas noticed Izuku was awake did they stop. Much to everyone's relief, though Denki couldn't help but cringe at the state of Izuku's apartment. What they? Who the hell are they? Izuku practically screamed as he clung to Denki tighter, while Denki tried to make sure Izuku didn't pass out, and Shinso didn't fail to notice the obvious crestfallen look both of the alphas had. Izuku calmed down. "They're the guys from before," Shinso stated as Izuku only stared in bewilderment before a few things clicked in his head. "So then why are they practically the size of giants? And when did they change?" Izuku yelled as he practically hid behind Denki, who allowed him to while also trying to cover the green-haired boy with his body as to not allow any of the alphas to see him. "Well, about that Izuku-dada." Shinso trailed off as he looked back to the two alphas who were only staring at Izuku. "I am Red Riot and he is Dynamite. And you are Deku," the redhead stated as Izuku only stared at him skeptically. "Okay, Denki, I'm going to need to make sure I heard that right because I'm hoping that I'm just losing my mind due to lack of sleep and probably malnutrition," Izuku stated as he looked to Denki. "No, we heard the same thing, Izuku, and they are actually Red Riot and Dynamite. Though the lack of sleep and malnutrition thing will not be forgotten, I will just hold it off until later," Denki stated as Izuku only groaned as he buried his face into Denki's chest. Though before either of the gods could comment on Izuku's statement, Denki stood as he brought Izuku up with him. "Okay, let's go to my apartment." The trip to Denki's house was an awkward one. After Izuku had grabbed some clothes and other things he didn't want to leave behind, they headed to Denki's house. Thankfully, the gods changed back into their regular clothes and went back to their human sizes. While Denki still didn't allow either alpha to come within 3 feet of Izuku as the group rode the train to Denki's. Though Izuku was trying his hardest to comprehend why on earth 2 gods chased him down, though upon remembering the small conversation he had with the gods about Deku, Izuku immediately paled. "Surely, they don't think I'm Deku, right? Deku is dead." Izuku tried to convince himself as he sneaked small glances at both the gods. Upon making it to Denki's apartment, Denki and Izuku both walked over to the living room as Izuku sat in a small lounge chair. While Shinso joined Denki on the love seat, the gods chose to sit on the larger couch. The gods and the trio now facing each other as an uncomfortable tension and silence filled the air. "Okay, so we obviously have some explaining to do," Red Riot mumbled as he rubbed his neck awkwardly, while Dynamite only looked away from the trio while Shinso and Denki glared lightly at the gods. "Obviously. Though I want to hear why Denki and Shinso are no longer hiding their auras and sense anymore. Did you both tell them you're demis?" Izuku asked as Shinso and Denki only nodded, while the 2 gods stared at him surprised. "You knew they're demis, Izuku?" Red Riot asked as Izuku only nodded. "Of course, we've been friends for years, we're pretty much family," Izuku stated, then letting out a sigh, as the Omega finally looked both gods in the eye. "Now what do you mean I'm Deku?" Izuku asked as the gods both looked to each other as they had a silent conversation. Denki then sighed, honestly growing tired of all the alphas in the room. "Izuku, do you remember your grandmother's theory?" Denki asked as everyone in the room turned and looked at him skeptically. "Yes? What does that have to do with?" Izuku trailed off as the realization hit him like a brick. "Denki, you're not saying that." Izuku trailed off as Denki only nodded while Shinso gave his nod of confirmation. "What theory?" Dynamite asked as both the gods stared at Izuku and Denki. "My grandmother made a theory a long time ago that Deku wasn't dead. She said that he very well could be lost and on Earth. Seeing as evidence only supports that you can't truly kill a god, especially a celestial." Izuku muttered as he refused to meet either of the gods' gazes. "Well, she was a smart woman then," Red Riot stated as Izuku only stared at them with doubtful, yet begging eyes. Though even he couldn't tell what he was begging for. He didn't know if he wished that his grandmother was here, if he wished that he wasn't the goddess Deku, or if a part of him hoped that he actually was. "Why yes, she was." Izuku stuttered as he dropped his gaze once again. "We originally had the same theory, Izuku. Though it's been proven to be far more complicated," Dynamite stated as Izuku only whined in frustration and pain as a headache made itself known to him. Though Denki only reached over and rubbed the poor boy's back in reassurance. Though both of the gods had to suppress the urge to take the Omega in their arms and comfort him. Both knew that it would most likely do the exact opposite of what they wanted. They both had been longing and searching for their missing mate for centuries, and here he was. Yet he wanted absolutely nothing to do with them. What do you mean by more complicated? Izuku asked as the gods had to shake their previous longing thoughts out of their minds. This wasn't their Izuku. Not yet at least. What we mean is, when you... It didn't kill you exactly, it broke your connection to the stars and us. Red Riot explained as he trailed off at the end, not exactly enjoying the fact. Though when you left it trapped you in a reincarnation situation, and it erased your memories of us, who you were, and if I'm guessing right any of your memories of your past lives, the redhead stated as Izuku only looked at him wide-eyed. Though immediately Izuku pulled out his old journal as he wrote furiously in it, "What is that thing?" Dynamite asked as Izuku flushed, slightly forgetting the gods weren't familiar with his habits. Are they? Maybe I've always had these habits? Izuku thought to himself as he continued, not paying any mind to the god's question. It's his journal, his grandmother gave it to him. It's a very old family heirloom. It dates back at the very least 400 years. Denki stated as the god's eyes widened in surprise. Izuku, can we see that? Red Riot asked as Izuku only looked at him skeptically for a moment, before handing it off to the gods. Both of the gods read through every entry. They both finally looked up at Izuku, both with looks of shock and something else behind their eyes. Though neither of the three could figure out what. Izuku, you realize the first owner of this book was you, correct? Red Riot stated as Dynamite continued flipping through the book. Immediately Denki, Shinso, and Izuku went wide-eyed. How could you know that? The very first few entries are hardly legible, not to mention it's in the old tongue. Izuku stated, not exactly knowing how to comprehend the fact that he is his own great something grandmother. Izuku, we're gods, we know every language in existence. We can read anything. Not to mention we've seen your handwriting. It can be far worse than this on one of your bad days. Dynamite stated as Izuku only flushed slightly, though he would agree that his handwriting was far from legible on a bad day. So, I'm my own great something grandmother? Izuku said with a bit of a laugh as he draped himself across the armchair. It would seem like it. That's honestly kind of hilarious. Shinso stated as Izuku only glared at him slightly. Are there any other journal entries from me in a past life? Izuku asked as the gods continued to skim the book. No. The only other entries from you are in this life. Dynamite stated as he handed the journal back to Izuku. But there was an entry about gods and their powers that we found pretty interesting. Red Riot stated as Izuku looked to him questioningly. It said that gods in some form can grow weaker from being away from their temple for too long, which explains why you've lost pretty much all connection with the stars and us in this life. You've been gone too long. Red Riot stated as the trio only looked to each other. So, what would we have to do? Denki asked as the gods only looked at each other, having another one of their silent conversations. Well, for one, Duracell, we have to get back to Mount Tentai. That's where Deku's temple is. Okay, but how do we get there? Shinso asked as the two Omegas only looked at each other. Well, if we knew that it wouldn't harm Izuku, we would just use our powers to teleport there, but no mortal can enter Tentai by magic. We'll have to get there on foot. We'll take Izuku first thing at dawn. You both don't have to worry about this anymore. Dynamite stated as Izuku looked shocked and a little frightened, while Denki and Shinso looked completely furious. Though Shinso only growled as he then shot up and stared the other alphas down. Don't have to worry about it anymore? Are you FNG serious? So that's it then? You just think because Izuku was Deku in the past he has to go with you too? Neither of you gets to make that decision for him. He doesn't know either of you. We're his family. And if either of you had actually missed him, then you wouldn't have waited decades to start looking. And it wouldn't have taken you another 400 years to find him. Shinso yelled as both Omegas looked at him shocked and slightly scared. Though both gods erupted with rage as they took to stand their own ground as they began to growl loudly as the dark and soul-shaking echo returned in both of their voices, and the entire apartment building and ground began to shake. Though Shinso didn't stand down as he only growled louder as his eyes began to glow a dark purple color, while Red Riot's eyes glowed a reddish sliver color and Dynamite's eyes glowed a reddish yellow-orange color. Izuku and Denki quickly took to gripping onto each other as everything within a 1,000-mile radius began to shake violently. Denki then grabbed Izuku as he pulled him underneath one of the counters while things began to fall and tumbled around, and both Omegas swore. They heard the ground begin to split, while the people outside screaming could be heard loud and clear from inside. While both Izuku and Denki had to cover their ears from the loud growling, it didn't stop them from hearing the loud siren outside that was alerting civilians of the earthquake, not that it was needed seeing as it was quite impossible to not notice the ground itself begin to split open. Finally, after at least 5 minutes of everything shaking and all 3 alphas flooding the house with their potent scents, Denki then zapped all 3 of them, which successfully knocked the 3 out of their haze as the ground then stopped shaking and the 3 had stopped growling. Though that hadn't stopped the siren outside from still blaring loudly. "Damn it, I said to cut that out. I knew you would cause an earthquake." Denki screamed through the blaring siren as he and Izuku kept their ears covered. Immediately the alphas covered their own ears as the siren continued to unleash its sonic cry. "How do we turn that infernal thing off?" Red Riot shouted as Denki and Izuku only pressed their hands against their ears harder. Finally, after a few minutes the siren turned off, and immediately Denki ran to the TV as he turned on the news channel only to see various reports of earthquakes in the area. This just in, various earthquakes and tremors have been reported throughout the city of Mustafa. Local authorities have asked civilians to evacuate immediately, while many of the spiritual leaders have tried to get into contact with the god Ingenium about the many tremors. Stay tuned for more. "We need to leave now," Denki shouted as the alphas and Izuku looked at him skeptically. "Look, they're contacting Ingenium. If he comes here, he will surely be able to sense you. Not to mention, I doubt the first impression you want to have on the mortals after over 400 years is that you both caused one of the strongest earthquakes we've ever had in over 40 years. Denki shouted as the alphas only nodded. "Wait, we're just going to leave? What about all those people? People could have been seriously hurt. Or even killed. Not to mention the amount of damage that was caused. Look outside. There are sinkholes and cracks in the ground now." Izuku shouted as he ran to the window and gestured outside. Immediately both gods outstretched their hands as their eyes began to glow once again. After a few seconds, both of the gods' eyes stopped glowing as they looked back to Izuku. No one was killed. Only a few were injured, though nothing major. Nothing big was destroyed, only a few small buildings collapsed. "And Ingenium can fix the sinkholes and the cracks easily," Dynamite stated as the other 3 looked at the gods with surprise. "How did you do that?" Izuku asked as Shinso then walked over to Denki, who was beginning to straighten things up, wanting to help his boyfriend. "We're the Celestials. We have been watching over the Earth for eons. While it's not our domain, we still protect it and know everything about it. So, we're able to scan certain places that we want to and do checks to make sure everything is in order," Dynamite explained. "Though whenever you would do your regular check-ins, you would always heal whoever was injured or sick. Or sometimes you would just give blessings to a certain artist and storytellers so they could share your stories through art, music, or just plain storytelling." Red Riot explained with enthusiasm while Izuku only looked at the gods questioningly. "What do you mean? Deku could heal? And give blessings? Nothing in the stories ever said anything like that." Izuku questioned as pain only washed over the gods' faces before they both put on their stoic facades. "Yes, Izuku. You are Deku, goddess of the stars, the arts, and of healing. Though your healing abilities weren't as widely known as everything else," Red Riot explained as Izuku only barely caught the looks of pain both gods expressed. "Though you never wanted people to know much about your blessing because you wanted the mortals to feel accomplished from their own hard work. Not because you blessed them. And you only ever used your healing when someone would ask for it," Dynamite explained as Izuku only nodded understandingly. "So, you two can scan the entire Earth within a few seconds, but it still took you 400 years to find Izuku and another 55 just to start looking," Shinso stated sarcastically while the 2 gods only growled at him in warning, though Shinso only snapped his jaws back. The three alphas were taken by surprise when Denki fired a small lighting strike at the three, successfully driving their attention away from each other and to the blonde-haired Omega. We don't have time for another one of your fights. Hitoshi, meet me and Izuku at the car rental place in 1 hour. You too, do either of you have phones? Yes, we do. The blonde stated as he handed the Omega his phone. Denki then took his phone and quickly placed his and Shinso's number into the contacts while sending the alpha the address to the car rental place. Meet us at this location. 1 hour. Now all of you are out while Izuku and I get bags and food packed. I suggest bringing at least a month's worth of clothes. We don't know how long this will take. Denki stated as he pointed to his door. When all three alphas left, Denki and Izuku both sighed in unison as Izuku looked to Denki with tears in his eyes. And while Denki tried his best to hide it, he too had his own unshed tears blurring his vision. Immediately both Omegas took to comforting each other while they both cried silently. Who knew I could end up being a Jigod? Izuku joked sadly as he choked on his own sob. Denki only laughed bitterly at the joke while he squeezed Izuku tighter to him. We still need to tell our jobs. Denki stated with a tired groan. We better do that. Izuku said as both Omegas let go of each other, though both still standing incredibly close to each other. After both had settled their things with their jobs, and successfully made sure they would have jobs when they returned, both Omegas merely began tidying up the scattered belongings while Denki packed his bag and Izuku packed the food. Seeing as he already had at the very least a month's worth of clothes in his suitcase. Okay, let's go start this road trip from hell. Just as Denki said, the group had met up at the car rental place after they all had gotten what they needed. After Denki rented out a Chevrolet Tahoe SUV, the group started to pack up the car. So where do we have to go first? Shinso asked as Denki and Izuku began placing everyone's one small bag in their seats and rearranging the food. The first stop will have to be at Cellophane's temple. If we're lucky, his mates won't be there, and he can help us. Dynamite explained as Shinso only grunted in response. The purple-haired alpha still somewhat bitter with the gods about them trying to take Izuku from Denki and himself. Since he had first met the Omega, he had seen the boy as a younger brother. He saw him as family. Okay, everything is packed. We need to head out now. I just got the alert that Ingenium was heading to Mustafa. Denki stated as Shinso only nodded and the gods began to get in the car. Would it not make more sense if either Red or I drive? We're the ones who actually know Cellophane, Dynamite stated from the back seat. No. Denki and I know where to go. Our parents taught us enough about all of the gods and their temples to where we know where to go. Shinso stated bluntly as Dynamite only grunted in return. Hold on. Where is Izuku? Red Riot exclaimed as he looked outside of the car for the Omega, seeing as he hadn't seen him in the car. I'm back here. Izuku cheered as both gods turned around only to see an extra row of seats that had been turned into what looked like a makeshift pillow fort. Izuku? What the? Red Riot questioned, though trailing off at the end only to begin laughing. Hey Izu, did you get the fort ready? Denki shouted as Izuku looked over to the other Omega. Up. Come on. Izuku shouted as he opened up the door to the very back as Denki then jumped out of the front seat and ran to the back to join Izuku. What in the hell are you two doing? Dynamite asked as Shinso only snickered. Whenever we go on road trips, we have a tradition of those two making a fort in the back seat, so when one of us is driving, the other two can hang out back there. Shinso said as the two Omegas cuddled up with each other. I see, so if Kaminari is sitting back there, one of us should sit up there with the driver to make sure you don't go the wrong way. Red Riot stated as Shinso only grumbled. Fine, Shark Teeth can sit up here cause I'm not sitting next to Explosion Beach for who knows how long, Shinso stated bluntly as Dynamite only shouted back at him, while Denki burst into laughter. Though Red Riot said nothing and only shrugged his shoulders a bit and got into the passenger's seat. Once the group was on the road, everything fell into a deafening silence. Shinso and Red Riot sat up front quietly, neither saying a word nor even sharing a glance. Dynamite merely stretched out in the back seat as he rested his head up against the window. Though Denki and Izuku shared glances as they texted each other despite being a literal inch apart. Neither wanted anyone to hear their conversation, also they just wanted to have a reason to feel sneaky. They were bored out of their minds, cut them some slack. Izuku and Denki chat. Green Bean, this is getting weird. Pikachu, no joke, normally Toshi would have said something snarky by now or at least turn on some music. Green Bean, not to mention those two look as if they're planning a murder. Pikachu, no joke. They both look so menacing. Like, please, I don't care that you're gods, I don't want to look over my shoulder for a few minutes cause you look like the definition of intimidation. Denki and Izuku texted each other throughout the next few hours, neither trying to make any verbal conversation. Though both ended up dozing off after getting cuddled up once again. Though both were awoken by the loud shouting of the blonde-haired god. Are you kidding me? If we go that route, we won't get there until next week. The blonde shouted as the two Omegas shot up quickly and watched the yelling match. Well, if we take your route, we might be dead before we even get there. You're forgetting that three of us aren't near indestructible. Shinso shouted back as the redhead only watched from his place in the passenger's seat. Oi! Denki shouted, which in turn made the two alphas stop their yelling match and turn to the Omegas. Will you shut up? I'm trying to sleep. Now, unless we are stopping somewhere to get something to eat, then go back to your weird but silent treatment. Denki yelled as he flopped back down into the fort while Izuku only lowered himself back down into the fort. Finally, after about 30 minutes the car stopped and Denki and Izuku looked out the window to see what was thankfully a rest stop. Let's go! Denki yelled as he dragged Izuku out of the back as the two sprinted off inside with the three alphas behind them. Once making it inside of the gas station, Denki and Izuku did their best to avoid the alphas as they walked around the huge gas station, before eventually going up to the front counter and paying for their snacks, drinks, and lunches. After paying, the two walked back outside and sat in the small shaded area as the two waited for the alphas to come back out. Zuku, I really want to talk to past you and just hear his thoughts of why in the hell out of all of the gods he chose to marry those two, Denki stated while Izuku ended up choking on his drink as he laughed. Once Izuku was able to regain his breathing, he merely looked towards the entrance of the gas station with confusion. Where are they? They came in after us, and I thought they were right behind us when we paid? Izuku questioned as Denki merely shrugged his shoulders and continued to eat his lunch. That is until Dynamite and Shinso came crashing out of the gas station, wrestling down onto the pavement as Red Riot came running out after them, trying to separate the two as a few onlookers walked past them as a few began to start videoing the fight. Quickly Denki and Izuku ran over to the males as they maneuvered around the people who were videoing the fight. Gods forsake it if we leave you three alone together. Denki shouted as he began kicking the two only the ground while the redhead quickly grabbed Izuku, not willing to let him get in between the aggressiveness. Damn it, guys. You're causing a scene, let's go. Izuku shouted as he tried to will the red-headed alpha to let him go, only for the man to grunt in return to Izuku's statement as he threw Izuku over his shoulder and grabbed the blonde alpha by his ankle as he dragged the two back to the car, leaving Denki to deal with Shinso. Once getting back to the car, Red Riot let the blonde go as the alpha cursed under his breath while Izuku tried to climb off of the redhead, only to be met with the alpha's grip tightening. Dynamite, can you tell Red Riot to let me go? Izuku asked as he looked forward only to be met with Dynamite cringing at Izuku's use of their god names. Don't FNG call us that, Deku. The blonde bit back while the redhead then gently placed Izuku down onto the ground, though not allowing his hand to leave the smaller male's waist. Well, I don't know any other names for you. And if I can't call you Dynamite, then why are you calling me Deku? Izuku sassed as Bakugu growled quietly at the Omega, while Izuku merely stuck his tongue out at the two as he pushed past Kirishima and got into the very back where his and Denki's nest was. Still as feisty as I remember, cats? The redhead mused with a bit of a chuckle. Yeah, still a little sheet too, the blonde stated as he and the redhead got into their respective spots in the car. Once Denki and Shinso had come back to the car, Shinso and Dynamite glared at each other quietly from where Shinso sat in the driver's seat while the blonde sat in the back seat in front of Denki and Izuku, while the redhead watched the glaring match with a hint of amusement. Okay. For the love of yourselves, quit acting like 10-year-olds. This is getting pathetic. You already caused a huge scene back there. And I for one was hoping to be able to eat the majority of my snacks in the nice shady area, but now I have to eat them in our nest and risk getting crumbs in it. So, start acting your age, you annoying demon alphas. Denki shouted as he leaned over the headrests, while the three alphas looked at him shocked, as Izuku only curled up in the nest while laughing quietly. The car once again was left in the awkward silence as Denki and Izuku continued to eat their snacks, though just as they feared, crumbs did indeed get in the nest, causing the two to constantly cringe when they would find crumb after crumb. And finally, they once again had to stop to refuel on gas, though instead of everyone getting out, Dynamite and Red Riot hopped out of the car as Shinso and the two Omegas watched them with a questioning look, only for the driver's side to be thrown open as Shinso was yanked out by the blonde despite the shouts of protest from the purple-haired alpha as he was thrown into the back seat in front of Izuku and Denki as the redhead got into the driver's seat with the blonde hopping into the passenger side. Oi! Assets! What the F dash? Shinso shouted as the redhead stayed silent while the blonde merely flipped off the purple-haired alpha, staying silent as well. You may think you know the way to Celophane's temple, but you only know the way to the mortal temple. We need to talk to him directly, so we need to go to the godly temple. Red Riot explained as the redhead then began to change their course. Why don't you just tell me where to go then? No need to manhandle me, Shinso shouted. You may be a demi, but we are the gods here. Even if you knew the route, you wouldn't be able to get in. Only gods can lead others to the godly temple. It's basically the same with no mortal being able to enter Mount Tentai by magic. The blonde explained as Shinso only grumbled in annoyance, while Denki and Izuku looked at each other questioningly. Besides, Shinso, it's only fair that you get some rest. We gods don't get tired as easily, you still need rest. So just sleep, we should be there by morning. Red Riot stated kindly while Denki merely hummed in appreciation towards the redhead as he patted Shinso's shoulder. And so just as the gods had suggested, the three did indeed fall asleep, only to be woken up by the blonde's loud shout. All right, idiots. Wake up, we've made it. Okay, but why do we have to wear this stuff? Shinso asked as he stared down the black chiton he was wearing while Denki stared at his yellow one, his gaze nowhere near as hateful as Shinso's. Because you are entering a god's holy sanctum. It's appropriate for demis. Besides, it also represents which god is technically accountable for you. Red Riot stated while he and Dynamite were back into their godly forms and outfits. Where did you even get these? Denki questioned as he looked towards the gods. We figured that neither of you would have something like this, so we summoned them, the redhead explained while Shinso merely grumbled in annoyance. Guys? While I'm not against wearing something like this, what's with this weird crown thing? Izuku questioned as he walked out from the bathrooms that they had ended up going to, all of them wanting to change and shower. While the Omega also held a crown that looked like a mixture of Red Riot's and Dynamite's own. That's technically what your celestial crown looks like, Izuku. Since you are still our husband and mate, despite anything and everything that has happened. It symbolizes your place and power as a goddess. Even though you don't have any of your powers back. Yet. The redhead explained as he took the crown from the smaller male and placed it on him before the two gods then began to walk away and into the forest. I have to say, Izuku, it doesn't look bad on you. But should we follow them? Denki asked as he and Shinso went to stand besides Izuku. Yes, follow us. Unless you extras want to get lost. The blonde shouted from the forest as Denki and Izuku flinched slightly at the volume while Shinso only rolled his eyes. Seriously, Izuku, when you get your memories back, I'm going to need you to give me a very detailed and very good reason as to why in the hell you would ever marry and mate with those two a-holes. Shinso grumbled as he grabbed Denki's hand while the blonde Omega linked shoulders with Izuku as Shinso began to lead them after the two gods. After what seemed like hours of walking, the group finally reached a ginormous golden gate, a magical aura surrounding it. Holy shit, Denki mumbled while the two gods merely walked forward and placed both of their hands on the doors of the gate. And with a swift motion the gates flew open, while Shinso, Denki, and Izuku were left in awe. Come on, extras. We don't have all day. the blonde stated gruffly as he and the redhead then began to walk forward. Also, while we're here guys, you might as well learn our real names. Red Riot stated while the other three only looked to each other skeptically. Ha! We are not telling them our names, dumbass. We can tell Deku and that's it. The blonde roared as he turned towards the other god, blocking the path to Cellophane's temple. Look, they have to learn it eventually, besides they already know Izuku's name. And I for one don't enjoy hearing Izuku call us by our godly names, it feels like I'm constantly in trouble. The redhead stated as the other three watched the debate. What the hell does Deku learning our names have to do with those idiots? If you want him to know, then tell him. That doesn't mean those FNG extras have to know too. Dynamite shouted while Red Riot merely grumbled under his breath while shaking his head. Hey! You know we are right here. We can hear you. Denki shouted offendedly while Shinso and Izuku watched. Oh, shut up, Duracell. The blonde shouted back while Denki merely walked forward towards the god. Now listen here, explosion boy. I don't give two sheets if you are a god. I will happily zap your butt until your brains are nothing but fried mush. So, either you tell all of us or you just shut up. Denki shouted while the god looked at the Omega dumbfounded by being berated by the male, while Shinso laughed loudly at Denki's statement, though the redhead and Izuku looked at Denki astonished. Well then you heard him, cats. The redhead stated with a chuckle while the blonde growled quietly at the Omega. My name is Idra Kirishima, and his name is Katsuki Bakugu. You guys can just call us Kirishima and Bakugu. Kirishima stated while Bakugu crossed his arms and huffed a bit. Sweet. But why did you want to tell us now? You could have just told us when we first met? Denki questioned while Bakugu rolled his eyes at the question. Idiot. Gods don't tell just anyone their names. Names have power, especially if you're a god. And we didn't tell you in the beginning because we had planned to just take Deku. But Deku wanted you guys to come, so we let you. More like he didn't and still doesn't trust either of you because you stalked him and attempted to kidnap him while acting like he was your property. And not to mention neither of us gave either of you a choice. Shinso stated harshly while Bakugu growled lowly at him, though Kirishima only looked away and rubbed his neck slightly. Okay. Well, we know their names now, Shin, so we should keep moving. We want to get help as fast as we can, right? Izuku asked as he got in between the two alphas. Right. Let's listen to Izuku and keep moving, Kirishima stated as he placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder, though the Omega couldn't help but feel intimidated at the reminder of the ginormous height difference. Once the group had finally batted to the temple, Shinso, Denki, and Izuku were left in awe at the sight, though Kirishima and Bakugu merely walked forward and knocked on the giant doors harshly. Once the doors opened, a man just about the same height as Kirishima walked out. His hair was black at chin length with his hair spiked downwards, along with jagged bangs coming about halfway down his forehead. His eyes were a deep black while small scars littered his face. Though his outfit, a black, skin-tight bodysuit with a turtleneck, plain apart from a white design on his mid-torso, and two gold trimmings around each of his arms that were covered by elbow-length sleeves. Along with white boots, lined with gold, and white short bands around his waist and on the sides of his thighs. Bakugu? Kirishima? The god shouted as he looked between the two celestials. It's good to see you again, old friend. It's been a while, hasn't it? Kirishima asked sheepishly while Bakugu smirked at his friend. Try over 400 years, you a-holes. The god shouted as he hit the two in the shoulder simultaneously, though eventually laughing loudly as he brought the two into a hug. Oi, tape arms, your mind changing smaller with us for a moment? We've got something to show you, and I'd feel better if you didn't accidentally crush em. Still one for your horrible nicknames, I see? But sure. The raven-haired god said as he and the other two gods shrunk down to their human sizes. The raven-haired alpha now wearing a plain gray t-shirt along with baggy black briefs. Oi, extras, come on. Bakugu shouted as the three stepped out from behind one of the pillars they had taken to hide behind, though Cellophane's eyes blowing wide at the sight of Izuku. Holy. Izuku. Holy F, you're alive? The Alpha shouted as he ran past Bakugu and Kirishima to grip the Omega's shoulders tightly, taking his time to inspect Izuku thoroughly. Why I am? And I take it you're someone I knew in the past as well? Izuku questioned, though the god merely flinched back in shock, quickly turning to Bakugu and Kirishima for an explanation. We have a lot to explain, but to give you a brief explanation, Izuku has no memories of being Deku, he's stuck in a reincarnation suicidal. Those two are Hitoshi Shinso and Denki Kaminari. They're Izuku's close friends and they are demis. And we need your help, Kirishima explained while Cellophane let go of Izuku and stared at the two other gods in pure shock and confusion. Then, I guess I need to introduce myself. I am Cellophane, god of loyalty, safety, and shelter, though I'd prefer it if you just use Hanta Siro. Siro if you will. Now come on inside. I may not be able to fully help you but both of my mates should be back soon. They can help. Siro explained as he led the group into the temple. Holy CRP. This is awesome. I was honestly expecting some sort of old-timey Greek get-up in here. But this is sweet. Denki shouted as they all walked into the well-decorated and seemingly high-tech temple. While I know a few gods and goddesses who like to keep it simplistic, I personally enjoy the more high-tech side of time. Besides, I can't live without AC. It gets brutal out here during the summer. Siro explained while Bakugu and Kirishima laughed quietly at their friend. Bro, this is sick and I don't blame you, the summer as is sometimes. Denki stated while Shinso quickly wrapped his arms around his boyfriend, trying to will the Omega to show some decorum around the god. I like this one. Siro stated as he looked towards the other gods. Yeah, he's got a real mouth on him. Once the group sat down in the lounge of sorts, Siro looked around in the group and couldn't help but notice the obvious tension between the five. Alright, first off let's get this over with. Bakugu, Kirishima, tell me what exactly is your plan, and what exactly has happened, Siro questioned as he leaned forward in his seat so he could rest his arms on his knees. Well, for starters, Izuku has no memories of being Deku, he's lost his connection to the stars and us, he has been stuck in a reincarnation CYCL for the past 400 years, and we are still trying to figure out how to help him regain his connection to us and the stars, and hopefully help him regain his old memories. Kirishima explained as Siro nodded in understanding. Well, I've got to say I'm at a loss, I'm still in shock that Izuku is alive. We were so sure that he was gone after Shigaraki dashed. Yes, well he's not. He's alive and he will regain his connection again. Bakugu interrupted while Siro placed his hands up in surrender. I think Shoto and Ito would be better equipped to help with this. Though I'll go look through the library to see if I can find anything. Have you tried to contact All Might? Or Eraserhead? Siro questioned while the other two gods merely shook their heads. How could my pops help out with this? He's the goddess of the death, I feel like that's the opposite of what we want. Shinso questioned. Oh, so, you're Eraserhead and Present Mix Kid. That makes more sense now. Present Mike? Do you mean Hisashi Yamada? My father. Yeah, though his godly name is Present Mike. Since he's a demigod, not to mention he rules the underworld with Eraser. He what? Shinso shouted while Denki and Izuku looked to him in shock as well. Yeah, they got married like centuries ago. Though Yamada would visit Earth a lot, mainly to check on things and such. Siro explained while Shinso was left in a state of shock. My uncle and aunt told me he was human. That he died. I guessed he would be in the underworld and most likely with my pops, but he's a demigod. And he's centuries old. Shinso shouted while the two gods looked to Siro. Yeah. How old are you two? I'm 24. Denki's 23, and Izuku is 22. Shinso shouted as he dragged his hands down his face. Oh wow. Yeah, you guys are literal babies compared to us. Hanta? Why do I hear yelling? Hanta? What's going on? Shinso, Denki, and Izuku froze at the sight of the god Ingenium and the goddess Frostburn, while Bakugu and Kirishima stood to greet the two as they transformed into their god forms, while Siro too transformed and turned to his mates. While the two were left in shock at the sight of the two gods, Frostburn's attention was immediately stolen by the sight of the green-haired Omega. Izuku! Izuku! Frostburn muttered as he locked eyes with the Omega. The goddess's hair, a neck-length dual color between red and white, spilt down the middle to separate the two colors, while a burn scar from the length of his hairline to halfway down his cheek on the left side of his face. On the left side, his eye is a turquoise blue, while on his right, a dark brownish-gray color. His outfit, a dark blue jacket with elbow-length sleeves, its collar high, and joined in the center by a gray neckpiece with a gray T design on the front of his chest going from his waist to his armpits, where two red and gray shoulder straps overlap over his shoulders and under his armpits, while two burgundy wrist guards with metal plating adorn his wrists, while dark blue baggy briefs are held by a red and gray silver plating belt. Red straps connect to the belt as they hug the goddess's outer thigh tightly. White boots with golden straps connected to them. Without a skip of a beat, Shoto shrinks his size to where he is just barely taller than Denki as he runs forward to entrap Izuku in a tight hug, while Ingenium watches with wide eyes. The god's hair, a dark blue with a short cut, flattened neatly down and parted on the right side, while his face is adorned with a singular scar that runs from his right eye down to the bridge of his nose. His outfit, a black one-piece suit with a high collar, over which he wears various pieces of armor, all silver and gold in color, including a chest plate, a metal collar around his neck and other around his upper arm, and metal vambraces that extend past his elbows pointed at the end, with a helmet in hand that covers his entire face when it is on. Silver knee-high boots with golden accessories adorn his feet, where engine-like accessories are attached to the boots, designed to aid in the travel around the earth. Izuku, you're alive? How? Shigaraki, he dashed up. You're Frostburn, right? This is him, right? Izuku interrupted as he looked over to Kirishima and Baku. What? You never call me Frostburn. The goddess stated coldly, though refusing to relent his grip on the smaller male's shoulders. Bakugu, Kirishima, you will explain this. And I believe I have a few other things I need you both to answer for. But this is far more important. Ingenium stated harshly as his eyes scanned over the two demis and the Omega that Frostburn still held in a tight grip. Okay, sit down. This isn't short, Kirishima stated as he gestured towards the seats. After a very long and very detailed explanation of what had happened and what exactly they were trying to accomplish, Ingenium and Frostburn were left wide-eyed at the newfound information. So, you don't remember any of us? Frostburn asked, the goddess now dressed in a plain white turtleneck, along with a blue cardigan with dark blue jeans. Ingenium, now in a much smaller form, wore a plain dark blue shirt along with black briefs, while Izuku merely shook his head. And you two? You searched the earth for 400 years. If you would have told me, I could have assisted you with this. This could have been handled so much better. And so much more discreetly. I mean, for the love of ourselves, you caused one of the largest earthquakes that Mustafa has had in over 40 years. Ingenium scolded while the two Celestials did nothing but keep their stoic facade. This was a personal matter. We did not need, nor would we have ever asked for your help. Bakugu stated harshly as he glared at the Earth God, while Ingenium looked at the two with a questioning look. Fine then. I apologize for this first meeting. I wish your first impression of me would not have been so brash. I am Ingenium, God of the Earth. Or if you prefer, Tenya Ida. Ida if you like. Ida introduced himself while Shinso, Denki, and Izuku nodded towards him. I am Frostburn, goddess of fire and ice. Or Shoto Todoroki, Shoto if you will. Shoto introduced himself. Hitoshi Shinso, demigod of death. A pleasure. Shinso introduced himself with a bow of his head. Denki Kaminari, demigoddess of lighting and storms, nice to meet you. Izuku Midoriya, though I guess you all already knew that. Izuku stated sheepishly as he rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. We did, Izuku, though introductions are still nice to do when you have no memories. Shoto stated playfully while Denki chuckled quietly. Bakugu, Kirishima, Hanta. Can you all please come with me for a moment? I would like to have a word. Ida stated as he stood and gestured towards the library, while the other three gods nodded and followed after the blue-haired alpha. Wait, I have a question. You, Ida, and Siro are all mated and married, right? Denki asked while Shoto merely nodded his head as a small smile appeared on his face at the mention of his marriage and mates. Then how come you all don't have the same surname? Also, pardon me for the boldness, but why don't you display your mating marks? Most humans have no idea that you three are together, let alone mated and married. Denki questioned while Shinso quickly slapped his hand over the Omega's mouth. While Izuku quickly shot Denki a look. Denki, you shouldn't ask such questions. It's rude. Let alone to a goddess. Shinso berated while Denki just glared slightly at his boyfriend. I'm not offended. It's a simple and understandable question. The reason why we don't tell just anyone is because many humans would make such a fuss about it. And in some cases, many of the spiritual leaders wouldn't want us to have separate temples. But that can cause an insane amount of mayhem. Especially with how many visitors we receive. Also, I don't show the mate marks in order to keep our secret. Shoto stated while he brought a finger up to his lips and made a shushing motion. Oh, that makes sense. Though I think that the spiritual leaders could do some good by shutting up and letting the gods and goddess speak for themselves. Denki stated bluntly while Shinso, Shoto, and Izuku laughed at the statement. Yes. Thank you, they need to shut up. They're too annoying. Not to mention half the shit they teach to kids is completely wrong. It's so annoying. Shinso stated as he threw himself back into his seat. Wrong? What are they teaching children that is wrong? Shoto questioned. They're mainly teaching a lot of misconceptions, such as gods and goddesses are to be feared blindly, or they will exact an act of horrible revenge upon you. When it's obvious that it's not true. Or they just don't teach about the gods at all. Izuku stated with a sigh, not enjoying all the memories of having to reteach so many kids about the true nature of the gods and goddesses. How dare they? That's not at all true. Shoto shouted while Denki nodded sadly. Not to mention what they teach about the Celestials, Izuku mumbled while Shoto then turned his attention back to the Omega. What do they teach Kirishima, Bakugu, and you, Izuku? Shoto questioned while the green-haired Omega looked up at the dual-haired Omega. Mainly they teach about how Kirishima and Bakugu are nothing but iron-fisted gods who care little to none about humans, and that they purposefully tried to destroy the Earth 400 years ago. Basically, the most stupid and untruthful thing there is to teach. Izuku stated with a huff. He had never once enjoyed the teachings from the spiritual leaders, and he most certainly never believed them. Especially now that he was actually getting to know the gods themselves. How idiotic! That's not at all true. Kirishima and Bakugu nearly died themselves trying to protect the Earth and the humans multiple times. Hell, they're the ones who defeated Shigaraki. If it wasn't for them, the humans would be dead. Shoto declared, despising the fact that his friends were berated so cruelly without any proof. Hey Shoto? Can you actually tell us what happened 400 years ago? There are a lot of different versions of how the story goes. What's the actual truth? Izuku questioned while Shoto's eyes went wide before he turned away from the three, trying to will himself not to cry at the memory. I was meant to be a regular day. Izuku, you and I were getting ready to travel around the Earth with Tenya. You told me to go meet up with Tenya first so you could finish up your duties, and so you could tell Kirishima and Bakugu you would be leaving. But Shoto trailed off as he brought his hand up to his mouth, trying with all of his might to not allow the sobs to escape him. He tried to will himself not to cry, especially now that Izuku was back. Just not fully back. Though immediately the dual-haired male was surrounded in a hug by Denki and Izuku, while Shinso stood close to the three, though refusing to invade their space until he was given the sign that it was okay. After a moment, once Shoto was able to compose himself, Izuku and Denki created a makeshift on the ground where the three were now seated. While Shinso sat against one of the couches and watched carefully. You don't have to continue, Shoto. If it hurts too much, don't push yourself. Izuku stated as he rubbed Shoto's shoulder gently, Denki sitting in front of the dual-haired Omega while rubbing his knee encouragingly. No. I want to. You all have every right to know what has happened. It might help you guys. Shoto stated as he squeezed Izuku's hand gently while smiling at the blonde male. Once I had gotten to Tenya, something felt wrong. I don't think I'll ever be able to describe it in words, but it felt like something was looming as a plague looms over a town. I'm not sure if Tenya felt it as well, but the entire earth practically shook. It was Mount Tentai. It shook so violently it rattled the sky, the earth, everything. Shoto recalled, though having to force himself to breath as to not break down once again. The stars nearly fell out of the sky, though thankfully only a few did. But immediately Tenya and I ran towards Tentai, but once we had gotten there, Kirishima and Bakugo were fighting Shigaraki. They looked injured, but they clearly didn't care. But what finally destroyed them, what finally broke the last bit of moral value they had? Shigaraki. He threw you off of the cliff of Kayamaru Falls. Shoto stated, while Denki and Shinso gasped, though Izuku stayed silent as he listened. I'll never know why he was evil, he was cruel. But I don't know what willed him to throw you off the cliff. You were already dead. Why your chest? I was already decaying from his power. But Kirishima tried. He practically threw himself off of the cliff to grab you, but it was too late. Tenya and we were frozen. We had only gotten there the second Shigaraki had. But the mere second you were out of sight. Kirishima and Bakugo, they lost it. Shoto explained while Denki covered his mouth as tears slowly spilled from his eyes, while Shinso quickly went to comforting the Omega. Though Izuku merely staying frozen. What happened afterward? What exactly did Kirishima and Bakugo have to do? Izuku questioned as he looked forward to Shoto. They attacked. Their only target was killing Shigaraki. Even after Creaty, Earphone Jack, Hanta, and All Might had gotten there, no one could stop them. Though Shigaraki tried one final time to get a hit, but once he did Kirishima and Bakugo, they created this blast. It was so strong and so deadly that it nearly destroyed Mount Tentai, the earth, and themselves. The story that we were told said that they casted everyone out after the battle. Is that true? Denki asked while Shoto could only sigh quietly, wiping a small tear from his eye. The memories slowly becoming painful once again. Not immediately. They were unconscious, and honestly, we thought they were dead as well. The sun was hidden behind clouds for weeks, and the moon didn't reappear for weeks either. But once they woke up, we all were so relieved, but they asked where you were, Izuku. Didn't have the heart to say it. I'd hurt far too much. But they figured it out. Shoto stated, though his voice breaking at the end, only for Izuku to quickly envelop the dual-haired male in a hug, while Shoto quickly returned the hug gratefully. You may not have your powers back, but I see that your hugs are still powerfully healing. Shoto mumbled while Izuku giggled quietly. No joke. Though that explains why it always helped when one of us would get hurt and you would hug us. Denki shouted excitedly, desperately trying to lighten up the mood. You know, back when Izuku and I would do our duties together, he would always hug anyone he saw, though so many people would faint from just seeing him. So, I'm not sure if he was healing them or sending them straight to Aizawa himself. Shoto joked while Izuku shouted out in surprise. Oh my gods! He did that back then too. Denki shouted as his laughter soon racked his body, the blonde having to clutch his stomach as his laughing grew harder. Back when we were kids, he would always hug random people whenever he saw them. He nearly got kidnapped a few times because of it. Shinso stated while Shoto laughed at the statement. I see your true nature hasn't failed to leave you, Izuku. Shoto stated with a laugh, while Izuku groaned as his friends continued to tell all the embarrassing stories of his pasts, though he soon realized that he remembered little to none of them, even from the ones in this lifetime. Ida, what did you need? Kirishima asked as the four walked into the library, Siro looking at his mate skeptically. A personal matter? Truly you both don't have such little faith in me to actually get me to believe that. Ida stated bluntly while Siro's eyes widened before looking towards his friends, quickly noticing their change in posture. You guys? Please, it's been over 400 years. We haven't heard or seen from either of you. The least that could be acceptable is telling us the full truth. Siro sighed as he sat himself down on one of the lounge chairs. We have already told you everything. I don't know what else you want. Bakugu stated gruffly, as he too sat himself down on one of the chairs. Kirishima soon taking the one next to him. No, you have not. You have not told us what gave you to the idea that Izuku was still alive. And you have not yet explained why on earth you wouldn't at least alert us of this. Even if you would not have allowed us to aid you in searching, we still could have at least kept an eye out, or tend to some of your duties for you. Ida stated while Kirishima only shook his head, Bakugu only clicking his tongue in annoyance before looking away from his friends. Please you two, at least explain how on earth you knew he was still alive? We all saw Shigdashta. Don't. His name. Bakugu interrupted coldly as he stared daggers at Ida. Fine. If you want to know so bad, we talked to All Might. We didn't want to accept what had happened, especially since it had been over 5 decades since Izuku. But either way, we talked to him. Kirishima stated. All Might? I haven't seen much of him either. But what did he tell you exactly? Shiro questioned while Bakugu and Kirishima looked to each other, holding a silent conversation between themselves, while the other two alphas watched. He told us that since Izuku wasn't killed by another Celestial or one of you guys, there was a chance that he was still alive. Though he said that Izuku could very well just be trapped somewhere on Earth and that he was just unable to find us or get in contact. He didn't ever once mention that Izuku could very well have turned human, get stuck in a reincarnation CYCL, and forgotten literally everything. Kirishima stated while Bakugu nodded. I see, but why did you not tell us? Again, we could have made this so much easier for you. Ida questioned, clearing not letting go of the fact that he was unaware of his two friends searching the earth for over 400 years without his know-how. Though Bakugu and Kirishima once again looked to each other as they held yet another silent conversation when finally, Bakugu sighed as he looked towards the two other gods. We didn't tell you because All Might told us that since there was a chance Izuku was alive, so is Shigaraki. Bakugu stated as Shiro and Ida's eyes widened at the statement. What? But that has to be impossible. We watched you two kill him. Not to mention you're both Celestials. There's no way he could have survived. I mean, look at Izuku, he might as well be next door to death. And he was a Celestial too. Shiro shouted as Ida quickly placed a hand on his mate's shoulder, hoping to bring some sort of comfort. Though Kirishima and Bakugu both growled lowly as the soul-shaking echo returned once more, neither pleased at the mention of Izuku's state, and neither enjoying it being said so carelessly. Watch your words, Hanta. He is still a Celestial that has not, nor will it ever change. And you will mind how you refer to him. He is still a god, and he is still our mate and husband. Bakugu warned, the echo and gravel never leaving his voice. I'm sorry, truly I am. I'm not trying to, nor will I ever try to bash Izuku, he's my friend as well. Shiro apologized, while Kirishima smiled to his friend and gave him a curt nod, though Bakugu merely nodded, never relenting his glare. So, there is a chance that Shigaraki is alive? Have either of you two found him? Or seen any sight of him at all? And again, why would you not tell us this? This is incredibly severe. Ida stated as he rubbed his mate's back comfortingly. We didn't tell anyone because, for one, it's a small chance that he is alive. 2, even if he is, he could be in a similar state as Izuku, which would mean he is completely harmless. And third of all, we knew that if everyone knew there would be a huge search, and the minute the other shadows found out they wouldn't stop until they find their leader and bring him back to his full power. We wanted to avoid a war. Kirishima explained, Bakugu nodding in confirmation. I see, I agree with you, it is best that we avoid another war at all costs, but even still we need to be vigilant. If he is alive there is a good chance that we won't find him, but the shadows will and they will do as you said. Ida stated. We know. That's why we wanted to find Izuku first, bring him back to Mount Tentai and reconnect him to the stars. When he is back those a-holes won't dare do anything, even if Shigaraki does come back. But as you can see, it's not exactly going as we planned. Bakugu stated, though grumbling out the last bit, not at all satisfied that their plan had pretty much flopped immediately. I see, well we can search through the library to see if we find anything, though I think that it would be far more successful to go to Creaty or All Might, they know far more about this than we do. Ida stated as Kirishima and Bakugu nodded, while they all then began to search through the library. Ah, there you four are. Did you happen to find anything in the library? Shoto questioned as he turned to the four alphas. No, unfortunately not. I don't suppose any of you have an idea, do you? Ida questioned, while the other four merely shook their heads. You said that Creaty and All Might could help us, right? Why don't we go to them? Kirishima asked while Izuku looked to Todoroki for an explanation. Who's All Might? Izuku asked while everyone in the room excluding Denki and Shinso turned to him with wide eyes. Wait, you don't know All Might? He used to be the strongest god. That is until Endeavor became the strongest, then it went to Katsuki and Aijuru, Shiro explained while Shoto laughed quietly at the memory of his father's realization of no longer being the strongest god. Did he disappear from all history? Because Izuku knows practically everything about the gods and goddesses, even the ones who aren't all that popular, Shinso stated while Shoto then turned to the purple-haired alpha. Somewhat, All Might was incredibly strong, generous, brave, and very well known for some time. Though when he retired no one truly knew where he went for a while until Izuku ended up finding him and convincing him to move his temple back to where it once was. Though he retired a very, very long time ago, so it makes sense that he isn't mentioned all that much if at all in history. Shoto explained while the other three nodded. Well, if we want our answers we better get going. Creaty's temple is a while away, not to mention if we want to see All Might it could take us a couple of days to get there. Bakugu stated as he nodded his head to the two other Alphan gods and began to walk towards the three, while Shoto merely glared at him coldly. I just got Izuku back. You're out of your DMN mind if you think I'm allowing you to take him, Bakugu. Shoto stated coldly as he glared at Bakugu, while simultaneously grabbing Izuku and hugging the male close to him. Icy hot. Give me my mate now. Bakugu ordered, while Shoto merely stood and continued to glare at the alpha. No. From what you all have told me, Izuku is most likely not all that trusting of either of you, and I have only been made aware that he is alive for perhaps 5 hours. He will not be leaving. Shoto demanded, while Bakugu merely growled to the Omegan goddess. And who the F do you think you are to be ordering me around? Bakugu shouted though Shoto was left completely unfazed by the blonde's aggressiveness. I believe I am the co-ruler of this temple, the one you sought out for help. So I suggest you show respect to the host. Shoto sassed, while Denki quite literally had to cover his mouth and nose to stop himself from laughing, although Shinso didn't hesitate to laugh at the blonde's reaction to Shoto's declaration. Alright now, calm down. Shoto is right though, you Izuku should stay, all of you should. You've all been traveling for a while and you're all tired. Everyone can just relax and pick out the room they want to stay in, and we can settle all of this in time. We need a plan first more so than anything. Shiro stated as he pushed himself in between Bakugu and Shoto. Cat, they're right, we're all tired, let's just relax, eat something and go to sleep. We need to figure out a plan too. We can't just keep winging things. Kirishima stepped in as he placed a hand on Bakugu's shoulder. Fine. Whatever Aijuru and I already know where we'll sleep. Bakugu stated while Shiro nodded. Shinso, Kaminari, if you like I can show you both where you can sleep and where the kitchen is. Ida offered while Denki and Shinso nodded as Ida then led the two away from the other 5. Izuku, we'll show you where you used to always sleep whenever we would come here to visit. Kirishima stated as he quickly hosted Izuku up as the two gods then lead Izuku to the rooms. Both wanting to distance themselves from their friends and hopefully get some time. With Izuku, Shoto's words rang clear in their heads. Hey Sho, what you said about Izuku trusting Aijuru and Katsuki. Do you really think that's how it is? Shiro questioned as he watched the two go around the corner with Izuku. In a form, yes. Izuku is hesitant around them, he uses their surnames, and he hides behind either Shinso, Denki, or me when the two come around. I wouldn't call it fear, but there is a clear sense of distrust and resentment from Izuku when it comes to those two. Shoto explained as he sat himself back down into the makeshift nest he, Denki, and Izuku had made. Well, I hope that it doesn't stay like that. Those two can't handle losing him again in any way. I can see it in their eyes, they're breaking at the idea that they won't get Izuku back, and there is something else going on too. Shiro stated as he slowly lowered himself next to his husband, waiting if there was any sign that Shoto didn't want Shiro near him. What else is happening, Hanta? And what do you mean they're breaking? Shoto questioned as he looked to his husband for an explanation. Shigaraki, there's a chance he's back as well. Since Izuku didn't truly die, there is a chance that he didn't either, and there could potentially be a war if he is back. But they're breaking, not because of Shigaraki, but because they don't know how to truly get Izuku back. For the first time in over 400 years, they don't have a plan of what to do. And it's breaking them, Shiro stated while Shoto nodded sadly. But that's not all that is wrong with Izuku, is it, Sho? You're never that protective, not unless something is wrong, and I know that you trust those two to never harm Izuku in any way. So, what's happening? Shiro asked while Shoto sighed quietly to himself. It's Izuku's memories. He didn't say anything earlier about them, but I could tell by his eyes, by his expression. He's losing his memories faster. Not just of his past lives, but of this one as well. Denki and Shinso were telling stories of Izuku back from his childhood and early adolescent years from this lifetime. But it was clear Izuku didn't remember any of them. Shoto stated while the Alpha's eyes widened at the statement. What do you think that means, Shoto? From what I have read about reincarnation, and those who get stuck in a CYCL of it, they only have so long to be in that reincarnation CYCL. In some cases, people can get out of the CYCL by finding what they were looking for in a past life. But if they are cursed with it, they only get so long to find what they need before they die in their last life. And I'm scared to say that Shigaraki knew that he couldn't kill Izuku fully, so he cursed him with the reincarnation. Shoto explained, though Shiro could only stare at his mate. Sho, you don't truly think that, do you? And if that is the case, what on earth would Izuku be searching for? He's had to live so many lifetimes in the 400 years. Would he not have found it by now? Shiro shouted, his fear for his friend's well-being spiking. I'm not sure what he could be looking for, or why he has not found it yet, but I think this could be Izuku's last life. This could be Ijiru's and Katsuki's final chance to get him back. And just as Shoto muttered his final statement, a dark and overpowering aura soon filled the room. Oh, how right you are, goddess! Shigaraki! Shiro shouted as he immediately stood in front of his mate, transforming into his godly form as he summoned his WHP, preparing to attack. Why just you two? I was hoping to see a few old friends. The man cackled as shadows soon surrounded him. Not on my watch, Shigaraki! Ida shouted as he came hurtling from around the corner, his boots boosting his speed as he used his leg to hit Shigaraki, only for the man to vanish in a mist of shadows, appearing behind Shoto, his hand reaching out to grab the goddess. Only for Shoto to quickly transform and freeze Shigaraki in place, all the while the man laughed at the three's attacks. Guys! Is everything alright? Denki shouted as he ran into the room, Shinso close behind. Oh, a new contestant in our little game, I see. Shigaraki shouted as he once again formed into the shadows, only to appear in front of the electric blonde, while Denki yelped in surprise. A demigoddess? You will be fun to kill. Shigaraki shouted as he went to grab Denki. Ida, Shiro, and Shoto charged for the man while Denki summoned his lighting as quickly tried to aim it towards the shadow man. Only for Shinso to jump over Denki and tackle Shigaraki to the ground. Don't dare! Shinso roared as a ghost-like shadows began to morph around him. You're not the only one who can control death. Shinso shouted while he used the spirits to help him pin Shigaraki down. Oi, what in the hell ? Bakuga began to shout before his eyes met with Shigaraki, Kirishima soon meeting the Shadow Man's eyes as well. Ah, there you two are! Shigaraki cackled as he kicked Shinso in the stomach, forcing the Alpha to fly back into a wall, Denki quickly running to aid Shinso. You! Bakuga and Kirishima roared as they both transformed and charged at Shigaraki. What, not happy to see me, old friends? I thought that you both would be delighted to see me after 400 years. Shigaraki taunted as he continued to dodge Kirishima's and Bakuga's attacks. Oh yeah, we'll be happy to see you when you're in hell. Die! Bakugo roared as explosions left his palms, sending Shigaraki back into the wall, while Kirishima hardened his fist into that of stone and aimed for Shigaraki, thought the man narrowly escaping the attack, causing Kirishima to punch through the stone wall. Denki! Shinso! Izuku shouted as he came from around the corner, only to see Denki tending to Shinso, while Shoto tried to capture Shigaraki once again in his ice, while Shiro and Ida aided Kirishima and Bakugo in trying to take down the Shadow Man. There you are. Shigaraki chuckled to himself as he once again morphed into the shadows, only to appear a mere foot away from Izuku. Izuku! Kirishima and Bakugo roared as they charged for Shigaraki once again. As Shigaraki appeared in front of Izuku, he reached out to grab the Omega's neck, only for Izuku to quickly round-kick the man in the jaw, causing Shigaraki to stumble back, both from the kick and the surprise of the attack. Though Shigaraki's moment of surprise was soon cut off by Kirishima coming around him to quickly grab Izuku and put some distance between the two, while Bakugo jumped into the air and set off a multitude of explosions at Shigaraki. Die, you bastard! Bakugo roared as he continued to let off explosion after explosion, though only when he stopped did he finally see that Shigaraki had once again morphed away, only to show up behind Kirishima as he stared Izuku dead in the eye, while the redhead quickly set Izuku down as he quickly turned to attack the other alpha. Don't worry, we'll meet again, Shigaraki promised as he stared at Izuku once more, before vanishing yet again as Kirishima's fist penetrated the now empty cloud of shadows. Though the second Shigaraki vanished, Izuku crumbled to the ground, only for Kirishima to quickly turn around and grab the Omega, his grip tight, despite his shaking form. Bakugo soon joined Kirishima in grabbing Izuku, the blonde not truly shaking, though his eyes told the truth of his emotions. And none of them were anger. Izuku! Are you okay? Denki shouted as he ran forward to the three, not daring to come too close, just in case the two alphas would perceive him as a threat. Though Izuku couldn't say anything as he clung to Bakugo's shoulders tightly, unable to bring himself to look his friend in the eye. Kirishima then looked to Denki, the alpha's eyes distant, yet morbidly dangerous, as he pulled himself, Izuku, and Bakugo up, both of the gods transforming back into their human sizes. Though none of the three uttered a word as Bakugo carried Izuku while Kirishima led them back to the room the alphas had chosen to stay in. I suppose there truly is no questioning it now. Shigaraki is back. Ida stated as he walked over to Shoto and Shiro, the god and goddess both back into their human forms, as Ida transformed as well, while Shoto had his back turned to everyone as he kept his head on Shiro's shoulder, the alpha merely holding his husband gently. He's being bolder because he knows that this is Izuku's last CYCO. Shoto stated while Ida looked to Shiro for an explanation, while the alpha merely sighed sadly at the fact that his mate's theory was correct. Wait, what? What does that mean? And wasn't Shigaraki dead? Denki shouted while Shinso went to hold the Omega protectively, not enjoying the near-death experience the blonde had just faced. Shigaraki is no longer dead. And what I mean is, Shigaraki most likely cursed Izuku with a reincarnation CYCL, but he's run out of time to find whatever it is that can break the CYCL. So now this is his last chance to go back to the way he was. And if he dies in this lifetime, then that is it. He won't come back again. Shoto stated bluntly, though his tears slowly cascading down his face, showing how truly horrified he was about his theory now being proven to be a fact. So you're saying that this is the very last chance that Izuku has to be Deku again? Denki asked, trying to will himself not to break at the idea of truly losing his friend. Yes. It is, that's why Shigaraki went after him. He's trying to make sure that Izuku truly dies this time. Shiro stated while Ida, Denki, and Shinso were left speechless at the information. We should check on Katsuki, Ijuru, and Izuku. I can only imagine how distraught they are right now. Ida suggested while everyone else nodded. As Shoto and I can, it'll probably be better that we do it. Since they could think that you guys are a threat since you're alphas. Denki stated while Shoto nodded towards the blonde. He's right, we'll go check on them, while you three check the temple and try to see how on earth he found us and how he got in. Shoto commanded as he walked forward to Denki and lead the blonde to where Kirishima and Bakugo regularly stayed whenever they would visit the temple. Katsuki, Idru, Izuku? It's just Denki and me. We would like to come in and check if you three are alright. Shoto asked as he gently knocked on the door, while Denki hesitantly stayed behind the goddess. Shoto, Denki. You can come in, Kirishima's voice came through the door as Shoto looked to Denki and nodded his head gently, signaling the other Omega to stay behind him. Once the two walked into the room, they saw Bakugo, Kirishima, and Izuku sitting on the large, pillow and blanket cover windowsill, as the two alphas watched the outside diligently, with Izuku's head resting on Bakugo's shoulder as he slept, while Kirishima kept his head rested on the Omega's chest, completely sandwiching Izuku between the two alphas. Katsuki, Idru, are you both alright? Is Izuku harmed at all? Shoto questioned quietly, being sure that his tone held no resemblance of that of a threat. No. He's not. He knew how to get that a-hole away from him. Fa kicked the sheet out of that BSTRD's jaw. Bakugo stated proudly as he brought his hand to gently massage Izuku's curls, while Kirishima laughed quietly as he brought his hand to rest on the back of Izuku's neck, his fingers gently tracing over his pulse point, reminding the redhead that Izuku was still truly alive. He's alright. But are you too? Shoto asked as Bakugo and Kirishima turned their head to look at Shoto. We will be fine when that BSTRD is dead. And when Izuku is back to the way he should be, Kirishima stated harshly, Shoto merely putting his hands up in surrender, showing the two that he still was of no threat to either of them or Izuku. How are we going to do that though? Besides, it's not like we'll get another chance in Izuku's next life. Denki mumbled to himself and Shoto, while the goddess merely nodded his head sadly at the fact. What the hell do you mean, we won't get another chance to do it in Izuku's next life? Bakugo growled lowly, both of the alphas now fully sitting up, though still not waking Izuku. We will tell you both later when you both are in a better state of mind. Shoto stated bluntly, though neither alpha took that as an answer. If it is about Izuku, you will tell us now. Kirishima commanded, his tone turning dark and venomous. Fine, we'll tell you. But I suggest you walk out of the room with us first unless you want Izuku to wake up to you both raging and becoming even more distrustful of both of you. Shoto stated as Bakugo and Kirishima growled quietly at the statement, though nonetheless, they both maneuvered themselves out of the nest of sorts as they laid Izuku down on the pillows and walked out of the room with the two Omegas. Now tell us. Bakugo commanded while the two Omegas looked to each other, both contemplating on how exactly they should word this to the two, already on the edge, gods. Okay, there's no point in beating around the bush. Izuku was most likely cursed by Shigaraki when he killed him. He cursed him to get stuck in a reincarnation cycle, though he's run out of time and this is his last life. Now we have to find out whatever it is that he needs to find so he can go back to normal, or he dies for real this time. Denki stated bluntly while Shoto looked at the demigoddess with wide eyes. Though both Bakugo and Kirishima were left speechless at the explanation. So, what you're trying to say is, Izuku needs to find whatever in hell's name is trapping him in this reincarnation cycle so he can become Deku again, or he dies one way or another in this life and he doesn't come back. Bakugo stated more so than asked, while the two Omegas nodded to the alpha. Shoto, you didn't change the location of the training room, did you? Kirishima asked while Shoto shook his head and pointed to the room that was nearly adjacent to the alpha's room. Good. We'll be out in a minute. Take Izuku to your room. Bakugo commanded as he and Kirishima walked into the training room, slamming the door loudly behind them. I'm all too horrified to imagine what they are going to do in that room. Denki muttered quietly. That room is practically a simulator, it will create you whatever you want. Creaty gifted all of her friends that room for their temples a long time ago. And I've seen those to conjure entire cities, just to merely level them. And that's just what they do when they're only a little angry. Shoto stated as he shuddered at the idea of what the two were doing in that room. Yeah, you know what, I think I'm good staying off their sheet list. Denki stated as he and Shoto walked back into the alpha's room and grabbed Izuku. Once the two Omegas had gotten Izuku comfortable on Shoto's bed, The two merely sat on the couch in the room as they stared off into space, both having no clue as to what to do. We need a plan of what to do. We need to figure out what it could be that is keeping Izuku tethered to the CYCL. And we need to find it fast. Shoto stated while Denki then looked over to the goddess. Yeah, but for now, let's just get in the nest and sleep. These past few days have been way too much shit to deal with. Denki stated with a sigh, while Shoto nodded to the blonde. Both of the Omegas then crawling into the nest, causing Izuku to wake up slightly. Hey guys, Izuku muttered as he turned over onto his back. Hey Izuku. Both of the other Omegas answered as they laid on their backs as well, all three staring up at the ceiling emotionlessly. Long nap break? Izuku asked with a bit of a chuckle. Very long nap break, Denki answered back as he turned onto his side and hugged a particularly soft pillow tightly. We sleep until our bodies hate us. Shoto commanded as he pulled one of the blankets over his entire body, covering his entire face as well. Sweet dreams, Izuku mumbled as he draped his arm over his eyes, while Denki and Shoto mumbled something similar in return. All three Omegas falling into a peaceful, yet dreamless sleep. Izuku woke up to a comforting warmth, only to see Shoto and Denki practically on top of him as they were all bundled up in the nest. And after a few moments, Izuku was able to wiggle out of the cuddle pile as he stepped out into the long hallway. Only for the Omega to flinch when he heard a loud explosion and crash. Are we being attacked again? Izuku thought to himself as he crept closer to the location of the sounds, despite his instincts screaming at him to run and get help from one of the gods. Though he wouldn't dare admit how he wanted two specific gods in general. Once reaching the room where the sounds seemed to creep out from a small crack in the door, Izuku slowly and carefully nudged it open, trying to make sure that whatever was in there wouldn't notice him. Though he only stared at the room in awe at what he saw, a large battlefield seemed to stretch out for miles in the distance, while swords, arrows, and unconscious ancient soldiers lay on the ground, though Izuku tried his hardest to not stare at the seemingly dead bodies. Though Izuku allowed the door to open just a bit more, allowing himself the room to step into the door frame, still completely mesmerized by what he saw. It seems to go on for miles. How large is this room? Is it even a room? Is it like a portal? Izuku thought to himself as he began to get lost in his own curiosity. Only for the male's attention to be quickly stolen by the sight of Kirishima, in his Goldie form, fighting what seemed to be hordes of soldiers and winning. So, we are being attacked? But Kirishima is clearly winning. But he could need help. Should I go get Shoto and Denki? I don't know where Ida, Siro, Bakugu, and Shinso are. Izuku fretted silently as he continued to watch the Alpha completely obliterate the armies of soldiers as if they were nothing but ants beneath his boots. Once Izuku then turned around in the dorm frame to go and alert Shoto so he could find the other three gods, the Omega was startled by a charging warrior, screaming out a battle cry as he lunged at Izuku with his sword. Though Izuku quickly dodged the attack as he pushed himself further into the mysterious room, allowing the warrior to fall forward slightly as his momentum was all for naught. The warrior once again turned around and charged for Izuku, though the Omega prepared this time quickly kicked the sword out of the soldier's hand, as he took stance to face the ancient-looking warrior in a hand-to-hand fight. And so, they did, the soldier only being able to get a hit or two on Izuku, causing the Omega to have a slightly bruised nose and a sore hip, though nothing Izuku couldn't ignore in favor of landing a final hit to the soldier's abdomen, causing the warrior to fall onto the ground while Izuku quickly pinned him. But before Izuku could begin his interrogation with the warrior, the Omega was quickly yanked up off of the soldier and grabbed from both sides by two other soldiers who had come to join the fight. Though just as the one that Izuku had previously pinned stood and took a stance to take a hit on Izuku, the soldiers and the battlefield vanished into thin air, leaving behind an empty white room. What in the world? Izuku muttered to himself as he looked down at himself, the dirt that had gotten on him still there, while the throb and ache in both his nose and hips signaled that his fight with the soldier was indeed real. Izuku! Kirishima shouted as he ran forward to the Omega, his size shrinking immediately once he reached Izuku. Are you hurt? Where did they hit you? Did they use a sword? Are you cut anywhere? Izuku, answer me. Kirishima fretted anxiously as he checked Izuku over from head to toe, quickly kneeling so he could check Izuku's sides to make sure that no bones had been broken or cracked. Though the alpha froze once Izuku made a quiet hiss once the redhead had touched Izuku's now sore hip. Quickly Kirishima ripped the fabric to Izuku's chiton that he still wore from the previous day, while Izuku shrieked at the action, though relieved that only the patch of fabric on his hip had been ripped instead of his whole outfit. Kirishima sighed gratefully once he saw that Izuku only had a bruised hip in place of a far more serious injury, though the alpha immediately standing and gently grabbed Izuku's face, inspecting the small bruise that was forming on the bridge of Izuku's nose down to his left eye, causing the alpha to hum worriedly, still anxious as to why Izuku seemed to be lost in his mind. "Izuku, answer me. I need to know if you are injured seriously. Please," Kirishima begged as he then cupped Izuku's face gently with his hands, bringing his nose to Izuku's hair, reveling in Izuku's scent that lingered in the Omega's hair. What happened? Were we being attacked? How did those soldiers just disappear?" Izuku asked as he tried to look around, only for Kirishima's grip to be limiting his motion. "They were fake, Izuku. This is a room Creaty gifted her close friends. It can create whatever you want. And I made them vanish. I saw that they had grabbed you. They were created to aim for the kill." Kirishima explained while the Omega looked around the room once more with awe. That is before he pushed Kirishima away from him with a pout, causing the alpha to growl quietly at the harshness in the shove. "I was handling it just fine. Besides, I took down the first one. The other two just caught me by surprise. They would have killed you, Izuku. I wasn't about to let them." Kirishima defended as he went to hold onto Izuku once more, his paranoia from yesterday's attack and revelations still at the forefront in his mind. "I can handle myself just fine, thank you. I did it before and I sure as hell can do it now." Izuku protested, his stubbornness taking away most of his common sense at that moment. "Izuku, you are not invincible. Nor are you immortal. You need to be careful. That means do not come looking for a battle that you are nowhere near equipped for. Especially one that was created by me. My training is beyond that of anything a mortal can handle," Kirishima stated, quickly becoming agitated with Izuku's defiance. "I'm not some damsel in distress that you need to protect nor save. I can handle myself, regardless if I'm Deku or a mortal." Izuku fought back, unwilling to back down, though Kirishima only growled lowly in return. "You nor Bakugo need to protect me. I can handle myself. Besides, I still don't have my connection back with either of you, my old memories, or the stars. So, you truly have to right or reason to act like this," Izuku stated, though Kirishima only lunging forward as he pushed Izuku onto his backside as Kirishima hovered over him with his hand cupping Izuku's face once again. "I will not lose you again, Izuku. I refuse to watch you die a second time and truly lose you. Despite any connection, you are my husband and my mate, and I don't care if you hate me for it, but I won't stop protecting you," Kirishima roared while Izuku's eyes widened at the aggressiveness from the alpha, only having truly seen such aggression from the blonde. "Izuku, please. White, don't know how world shattering it felt when I watched you die, and I could do nothing to stop it. I lost you. I can't let that happen again. I can't handle it. And neither could Katsuki. We can't lose you again, Izuku. So please, stop pushing us away from you," Kirishima begged as he cried quietly into the Omega's shoulder, wrapping his arms around the smaller male's waist. Izuku immediately cursed himself internally for his outburst, not at all wanting to hurt Kirishima in such a way. So, he did the only thing could do to apologize. He gently pushed the alpha onto his backside, as he carefully climbed onto the god's lap, hesitant at first to allow Kirishima the chance to deny him. Though the alpha only pulled Izuku forward gently in response, urging him to continue to move forward. Once Izuku was sat on Kirishima's lap, the alpha just continued to take in Izuku's scent, while Izuku allowed his mind to go blank as he relaxed from Kirishima's Woodstock fire-like scent, while Kirishima reveled in Izuku's mint and chocolate scent. Izuku felt himself fall into a dazed state, trying to will himself not to fall asleep in such a position. Once hearing the door to the room open, Izuku tried to force his body to move so he could see who it was, though his own body betraying him in favor of staying as close to the comforting scent as possible. Damn it. I need to move. I don't know who's here. Gods. Why now of all times does my inner Omega decide to make a presence? Izuku cursed himself internally, though still unable to force his body to cooperate with him. What happened? Bakugo asked while Izuku then couldn't decide if he was happy that it was only Bakugo, or if he was slightly annoyed. Simulation accident. No major injuries, a few bruises is all. Kirishima stated back as his hand brushed over the bruise on Izuku's hip gently. So, I'm guessing that's why his clothes are ripped? Bakugo teased while Kirishima only grumbled quietly in return, though Izuku couldn't help but blush from the teasing, only now registering that his clothes were in fact ripped and most likely exposing his skin aside from just the bruise. Where's the other bruises? Bakugo asked as he sat down on the floor next to the two, while Izuku tried to hide his face in Kirishima's shoulder, knowing that trying to leave the situation now would either just be plain impossible or end in a very unfortunate manner. Only one. Right here. Kirishima stated as he lifted Izuku's head with ease, guiding the smaller male to turn his head to Bakugo to display the bruise that traveled from the bridge of his nose to his eye. Is it a broken nose? It looks like he has a black eye. Bakugo stated as he ghosted his fingers over the injury while Izuku pouted slightly, not exactly understanding why both alphas were being so overprotective. Despite Kirishima's earlier breakdown moment. It's not, I'm fine, the one soldier just hit me in the face with the hilt of his sword. I didn't even feel it until now. Izuku stated with a huff as he tried to pull himself away from Bakugo's hand, only for the alpha to growl quietly in response, quickly grabbing the Omega's jaw to force him still as he continued to inspect Izuku's face. Hey, let go. I'm fine. Izuku whined as he began to swat at Bakugo's hand, the alphas only chuckling at Izuku's attempts to make the blonde let go. You're still so stubborn, Izuku. Have you not learned how to take care of yourself in the past 400 years? You still have no DMN self-preservation. Stubborn little Omega. Bakugo teased while Izuku whined once more, though this time Bakugo loosened his grip enough to allow Izuku to pull jaw free, only for the smaller male to quickly bite down on the blonde's hand in retaliation. Quit that, you stubborn little sheet. Bakugo shouted as he quickly pulled Izuku off of Kirishima's lap while he tried to yank his hand free, only for Izuku to lock his jaw, glaring at the alpha. Though Kirishima merely fell onto his back rolling with laughter at the scene, the Omega then released Bakugo's hand, only for him to tackle the blonde. While Bakugo only continued to shout swears as the Omega hit him wherever he could reach. Once Kirishima was able to force himself to breathe again, he swiftly pulled the smaller male off of the blonde, bringing Izuku onto his lap once again. While Izuku allowed himself to be manhandled as he blew a raspberry at Bakugo. You feisty little sheet. Didn't even lay a good hit. Bakugo taunted while Izuku only grumbled in response. My teeth marks on your hands say otherwise. Besides, you didn't get a good hit either. Izuku taunted back, though Kirishima only laughed quietly at the two as they started their own silent glaring contest. Katsuki, Idru, are you both in here? I went to check on you both in your room but you weren't dashed. Ida began to ask, though cutting himself off at the sight of Bakugo and Izuku glaring at each other, while Kirishima watched with a fond smile. Hey Tenya, yeah, I came in here for training earlier, though Izuku ended up joining me accidentally, and now here we are. Kirishima explained while Ida merely laughed quietly at the sight, neither of the two breaking their glaring contest despite the god's presence. Hanta and I were about to go wake Shoto, and most likely Denki and Izuku. Though I see now that you both have him covered, I suggest you come to the seating room in a while for breakfast, and so we can discuss yesterday and what to do. Ida stated while Kirishima nodded to his friend, both Izuku and Bakugo nodding as well, though again never breaking the contest. Ida merely laughed at the sight as he then walked out of the room, leaving the three to their activity. Though once Izuku finally won when Bakugo's eyes got too dry, the three then began to walk back to the alpha's room. Bakugo, Kirishima, I grabbed our bags last night, I left yours outside your dashta. Shinso cut himself off as he walked up to the two gods, though his attention solely on Izuku, the clear bruise on his face along with his torn clothes and the dark bruise sticking out on his pale hip. Izuku! What the hell happened? Shinso shouted as he grabbed the Omega and pulled him away from the two gods as he inspected his face. Oh geez, Hito, I'm fine. It was an accident and it doesn't hurt. Izuku explained while the purple-haired alpha then looked up to glare at the two gods who were glaring back at him slightly. Did you both do this? Shinso accused as he pushed Izuku behind him while Kirishima's glare only harshened, though Bakugo immediately growling at the other alpha. Ha! The F dash. Why in the F would we hurt Izuku, huh? Bakugo shouted as he pushed his face only a mere centimeter away from Shinso's, though the purple-haired alpha only growling back at the gods. I don't know, maybe because ever since we first met you two, you've done nothing but prove to be a danger to Izuku. I mean, what about that guy yesterday? He came after you too and then Izuku. Shinso shouted while the two gods' growls turned to the dark soul-shaking echo, though Shinso only stood his ground, guarding Izuku from the two gods. Hitoshi! Izuku shouted as he put himself in between the three alphas. They didn't do anything to me. I got hurt fighting some soldier thing in one of the magical rooms, but Kirishima stopped them and they both helped me. And yesterday wasn't their fault. It wasn't anyone's. Izuku scolded as he glared at Shinso, the purple-haired alpha backing down near immediately. Okay, fine, I'm sorry. But you need to be more careful. Shinso stated while Izuku smiled at his friend, thankful that he didn't try to continue the fight. I know, I've been told. Your bags are with Denki, though I'm guessing he put them in your room. You know where you're at? Shinso asked while Izuku nodded. Good, now go get changed and tell Denki or me if you need help. Shinso stated as he walked away, the two gods only glaring slightly after the alpha. I'm going to go get changed and cleaned up, I'll see you guys at breakfast. Izuku stated as he walked down the hall and to his room. I'm really getting sick of Shinso. Kirishima stated while Bakugo grumbled in agreement. At least Deku is trusting us more. Bakugo stated as the two walked to their room. Now all we have to do is get Denki and Shinso to ease up a bit, or at least trust us somewhat. Kirishima stated as the two then began to strip so they could get washed up. Neither having showered after yesterday's training of sorts. Yeah, easier said than done. At least Dun's face isn't as much of an a-hole as eyebags. Maybe it would help if you didn't call them those names? Shut up, shitty hair. Once Izuku had met up with Denki in his room, and went through the whole routine of Denki fretting over him before allowing Izuku to explain, Izuku was able to get cleaned up and into a fresh pair of clothes, though having to discard the chitin, seeing as it was pretty much torn to hell. How did I not notice he tore that much? Izuku thought to himself as he dried off his hair, though his attention then going to the crown that sat on the bedside table. Wow, it really does look a lot like both of theirs, Izuku thought as he grabbed the accessory and inspected it, taking care when handling it, acting as if it would break if he held it too tightly. Once Izuku had given himself the time to inspect the crown, along with getting all of his things in order, he walked out of his room, a plain white t-shirt, covered by a black jacket with dark blue jeans. Hey guys! It smells good in here, Izuku stated as he walked into the room, while Denki then waved at him as he continued to stuff his face with pancakes, Shinso copying him, though nowhere near as messily. Good it should. Izuku, do you want dash dot? Shoto asked before he practically threw his utensils and ran forward to Izuku. Izuku, were you injured yesterday? Why did you not say anything? Are you hurt anywhere else? Why must you have no DMN self-preservation? Shoto fretted as he inspected Izuku's face, while Izuku whined, growing hungry from the smell, and growing tired of having to go through this whole routine again. I'm fine, I got caught up in Kirishima's training, but he stopped it before I could actually get hurt. It's only a bruise. Izuku explained as Shoto turned to the redhead who merely nodded in response. Fine. Have you no sense though? Kirishima does intense battle training. Why would you walk in on a battle? Shoto scolded as he popped Izuku against the back of the head. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure we weren't being attacked. Izuku tried to defend himself while Shoto merely rolled his eyes and dragged Izuku over to sofas where they were all eating. Demon though Izuku, you sure you're okay? That looks like it kind of hurts. Shiro questioned while Izuku merely shook his head as he grabbed himself some breakfast and took the seat between Denki and Shoto. Trust me when he says he doesn't, he doesn't. He's always had an insane pain tolerance. He literally won a martial arts contest after his opponent broke his arm. He didn't feel it until later. Denki stated while Shinso nodded in confirmation. No FNG self-preservation, Bakugu grumbled while Kirishima sighed and shook his head lightly. Geez, what is this bash Izuku day? Dang. Izuku whined while Shoto merely ruffled the smaller Omega's hair as everyone else laughed. Unfortunately, we do have much more pressing matters to discuss. Such as Shigaraki. Ida stated as everyone fell quiet and looked to the earthly god. Did you three find out how he got in? Or how he even found the temple? Shoto questioned. He could have likely found the temple on his own, though he got in through a small hole in the barrier. Tenya and I fixed it, but it does show that he is strong, perhaps as strong as before, seeing it looked similar to the hole we found in the Tentai barrier when he... Shiro trailed off at the end, knowing it wouldn't be wise to bring up the past when Kirishima and Bakugu already looked beyond livid at the mere mention of yesterday's events. So, what should we do? What will you guys do if he comes back here? Denki asked, worried for his new friends. Well, if he comes back here he will find an empty temple, and there is no damage that villain could do that we cannot repair quickly. Ida stated while Denki looked to the Alpha questioningly. What do you mean? Where are you three going? Denki asked while Shiro chuckled quietly at the confused blonde. We will be going with you, Denki. It will be safer if you five have some extra help. Shoto stated, while Denki and Izuku both gasped excitedly at the new information. What? You didn't ask us, nor mention this. Besides, you don't need to get dragged into this. I'm actually debating if we should even let those two come along any farther. Bakugu stated as he pointed to Shinso and Denki. You can't get rid of me, Baku bitch. Where Izuku goes I go. We're a package deal, just ask Hitoshi. Denki stated proudly while Bakugu sputtered at the nickname. It's true, though I don't mind, it's a free little brother, I'll take it. Shinso stated while Izuku and Shoto laughed at the statement. Ida and Shiro chuckling at the interaction, both enjoying seeing their mate be so happy. While Bakugu and Kirishima looked to each other, having their own silent conversation as to what to do. This is not up for discussion, guys, so you might as well say, hey thanks, sure thing, come along. Shiro stated while Kirishima and Bakugu looked to the god with a small glare. You two will not be leaving us out of this one. I will not allow it. Ida stated while both gods only groaned slightly. Guys, we are grateful truly. But we don't want to drag you into this. Shigaraki might be able to track us better if we're in a huge group. We're already at a disadvantage with having a semi-large group now. If you want to help, then you can take those two and we'll contact you if we need help. Kirishima stated while Denki and Shinso shouted out in defiance to the statement. Kirishima, while I appreciate your concern, I refuse to stand by once again and allow my friend to befall a similar fate like last time. I could do nothing before, and I will be demed if I'm not there to help. Shoto stated coldly, his tone harsh and uncompromising. Fine, thank you. But seriously, we need to figure out how to get to Creaty's temple quickly. The last thing we need is for Shigaraki to find us quickly. Kirishima stated while Shiro immediately perked up as an idea came to mind. We could fly there. I heard human airplanes are a lot of fun. Besides, then he can't track us because our sense and aura will be so drowned out by mortals. Shiro shouted excitedly. Actually, that could work. Not to mention I don't want to get stuck in a car with these two again, and we can drop the rental car off there and get another one. Shinso stated while Denki smiled widely. Oh hell yeah. A road trip just turned into an air trip. Denki shouted excitedly. I'm all for this plan, are there any objections? Ida asked while everyone shook their head. Well, I suggest we get packed then and we need to book tickets. Look, if I have to spend time around mortals on a cramped plane, it better be in first class. I'm not going to listen to some little sheethead scream the entire flight, Bakugo stated. First class it is then. I forgot how annoying you mortals truly are. Bakugo grumbled as he slumped in his seat in the waiting area of the airport. You know, for someone who's supposed to protect and care for all mortals, you sure do have a distaste for them, Denki stated back sassily while Bakugo merely rolled his eyes. It's not my fault that you people don't know basic knowledge. And just cause I protect mortals doesn't mean I have to like em. Bakugo shouted back while Shoto rolled his eyes at the god. Katsuki, that wasn't basic knowledge. You were asking that poor woman things that were far from her job description. Shoto stated while Bakugo shouted out in retaliation. Ah, well, if she doesn't know the basic operations of a plane, then she shouldn't work at a FING airport. Bakugo shouted while Siro hunched over laughing at the blonde's declaration. Dude, she was a security guard. Her job is to literally just check the bags. Besides, I think you scared the shit out of her. Siro howled with laughter as he had to clutch his stomach from the force of his laughter. Bakugo merely grumbled in response. Besides, you were quite rude, Katsuki. You should have apologized. Ida berated while Bakugo raised the bird at the fellow god. Ida squawked in response as he continued to lecture Bakugo, though the lecture fell onto deaf ears. Damn it. Guys, learn to shut up. We're in public, and if you draw any more attention to us, they might call security. Besides, you need to learn to watch your words. People are going to notice when a group continues to call other people mortal. Shinso hissed as he, Isuku, and Kirishima returned with a various amount of snacks and drinks. Whatever I bags. Besides, it's not like those wimps would do anything, Bakugo stated while Shinso merely groaned as he set down the drinks and snacks. He was carrying on to an empty seat in the small area that the group had taken over. They might not. But there could be others listening. If Shigaraki is back, then that could mean the ones who used to serve him probably know and they're back too. And if you don't learn to shut up and stay inconspicuous, then they'll find us and alert Shigaraki. And I wouldn't put it past that monster to kill other innocents to get what he wants. Shinso hissed as he pushed himself into Bakugo's personal space, the two alphas glaring at each other for a moment before they both turned away from each other. You are correct, Shinso. We apologize, we will do our best to try and stay unnoticeable, though you must stay patient with us. It is the first time that we are out in the mortal world as normal people, rather than gods. Ida stated as Shinso nodded to the god. I understand, Ida. And I can understand that it's a change for you, Shoto, and Siro. But it shouldn't be for these two. Unless this is how they've behaved throughout the past 400 years. Shinso stated coldly as he glared at the two celestials. Kirishima rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly, while Bakugo raised the bird to Shinso, the purple-haired alpha merely returning the gesture in response. Okay, now that the lectures are aside, can we discuss why in the hell there is so much beef jerky, and why there are only healthy snacks? Denki cut in as he held open the bag that now held all of the snacks. An unfathomable amount of beef jerky in the bag, along with a multitude of other healthy snacks. They are good ones. Besides, it'll help fuel us so we can keep up our energy. Also, Kat and I both really like beef jerky, so we end up going through it pretty fast. Kirishima explained, Denki glaring at the alpha in disgust. As Shinso merely laughed at the sight of the bag, while Izuku side-eyed the alpha, now realizing all of his suggestions of actually good snacks had been ignored. Kirishima, I will say this in the best way I can. You and I am not eating this bullshit. Denki stated as he shoved the bag into the alpha's arms. The redhead went wide-eyed at the declaration, while Shinso only continued to cackle as he had to lean against one of the seats. And I swear, if there are sports drinks, protein drinks, or anything remotely healthy in that other bag, I will kick you in the ball, you overgrown meathead. Denki declared as Kirishima then reached around the Omega and hid the other bag behind his back. Seeing as that was exactly what was in the bag. Ridiculous. Izuku, come on. We're getting actually good snacks. Shoto, you want to come? Denki asked while Shoto then nodded as he followed the two other Omegas to the small stores. Kirishima and the three other gods were left in a state of shock as they watched the Omegas walk out of sight, while Shinso found the strength to force his laughing to stop. What's wrong with beef jerky? These are good snacks. They would give us energy. Kirishima protested, slightly offended that his snack choice had been turned down so blatantly. Kirishima, whenever you go on a road trip, on an airplane, or anything truly similar to that, it's a common practice to indulge in sweets or not-so-healthy snacks. You literally chose what we eat whenever we have to work out. And Denki's biggest rule on road trips is, no healthy food allowed. Shinso explained while the redhead grumbled quietly. But all of the other options in those stores were a pure sugary nightmare. They look disgusting. The chocolate isn't even true real chocolate. It has so many fake preservatives in it. Kirishima protested while Shinso only chuckled at the god's confusion. That's kind of the point. It's not really healthy and you shouldn't eat all that often, but that's why we indulge in it on road trips. It's a treat of sorts, and we don't go on road trips often so it's not bad, Shinso explained while Kirishima's nose scrunched in disgust. Look man, just try it. I promise you'll find that you'll like it. Shinso tried to bargain while Kirishima gave him a deadpan look. I'm not putting those sugary monstrosities anywhere near my mouth. Kirishima stated bluntly while Shinso only laughed. Whatever you say man, you're missing out. Shinso stated as he took his seat and pulled out his phone. I don't care what you guys think, I'm trying some of that stuff, Siro stated while Shinso cheered quietly. I believe I will as well, besides if it is safe to indulge in it on occasions then this could be the perfect one. Ida stated while Siro smiled to his mate before leaning back against the blue-haired alpha's shoulder. See? Besides, it'll help us blend in. I think people will actually call security on us if they see the weird people who were talking about mortals and such eating only healthy foods on a plane when there is literally a huge variety of snacks and candy. Shinso stated with a chuckle while Kirishima grumbled quietly. What those DMN extras think. I'm sticking with what I know is good. Bakugo stated as he pulled out one of the protein shakes that Kirishima had bought and began to down it. Kirishima following his lead and doing the same with another one. Bleh. Nah, I'm sticking to what tastes good. Shinso replied while Bakugo only rolled his eyes. Once the Omegas had returned with 2 bags full of drinks and snacks. Shoto then grabbed a few of the snacks and drinks that he had picked out for Siro and Ida, as he handed them to the 2 alphas, the 2 pulling Shoto down next to them and holding him lovingly in return. Denki doing the same with Shinso, while the purple-haired alpha placed a quick kiss on the blonde's cheek in thanks. Kirishima, Bakugo. Try these, it's not really sugary but it still tastes good. It's personally my favorite. Izuku stated as he handed the 2 a few chocolate mints, the 2 looking at the candies skeptically. Izuku, thank you. But we aren't the biggest fan of human candy and snacks. Kirishima stated as he went to have the chocolates back, only for Izuku to shove one into the redhead's mouth, causing the alpha to sputter while Bakugo looked between the 2 in surprise. Now just try it. They're good, I'm not the biggest fan of sweets either, but I like these. Izuku stated as Kirishima then chewed the mint candy, only to grab one and hand it to Bakugo, nodding to the blonde. The god then hesitantly began to chew the candy, only for his eyes to widen slightly as he nodded to Izuku. See, I told you. It's good right. I've always liked these for some reason. Izuku stated as he grabbed one of the candies and popped it into his mouth, humming quietly at the chocolatey mint taste. They taste the way your scent smells, Izuku. And you've always loved mint and chocolate. It's one of the only sweets that you could ever get us to eat as well. Kirishima stated as he pulled Izuku down onto the seat in between the 2. Both of the gods happily placed another candy back into their mouths. Really? What do you guys eat for sweets since you're so against sugar? Izuku questioned while the 2 only laughed. We don't mind sugar, Izuku. We just don't like the way humans make it. They make it far too sweet, and it's fake. Not at all like our harvests, nowhere near as clean and fresh. Kirishima stated as Izuku looked at the god questioningly. You guys grow your food as well? I thought you didn't need to eat. We don't have to eat as much as mortals or demigods do, Deku. But we still need to eat for energy, or just take a really long nap. And eating is quicker. Yes, we grow our own food. I am the god of the harvest, am I not? Bakugo stated while Izuku nodded. But the candy tastes the way my scent smells? Izuku questioned while Bakugu raised his eyebrow in question. Yes, did you not realize that? You said that you love these things, should you not know the similarity between your scent and these candies? Bakugu questioned. Not ever since I presented, I had to wear scent patches and take suppressants, since I have such a strong scent. Izuku explained while Kirishima and Bakugu looked at each other, both growing angry at the statement. Though they could understand why Izuku would have to. Some mortals were so idiotic. That's shit. Mortal suppressants can harm you. Have you ever been off of them? Bakugu questioned while Izuku shook his head. No, I've had to take them every day since I was 13, Izuku explained while Kirishima and Bakugu both had to quickly bite their tongues to hold back the growls that pried at their throats. Where are the suppressants? Kirishima asked, while Izuku then pulled out the bottle from his carry-on bag. Kirishima then quickly snatched the pills as he read the label quickly before shoving them into his bag. Hey, give those back. Izuku protested while Kirishima easily held his bag above Izuku's reach. I read the label, Izuku. You only need to take the suppressants every 3 days. Taking them every day can harm you. So now we're in charge of them. Come to us in 3 days. Kirishima stated while Izuku whined. I told you I have a strong scent. I can't take it every 3 days. My scent will be noticeable if I don't take them every day. Izuku protested, while Bakugu then pulled the male to sit down once again, Izuku pouting in return. Stupid alphas. Izuku muttered, while Kirishima merely chuckled quietly at Izuku, Bakugu only growling playfully in return. Everyone, our flight is here, and our group has been called. Let's go. Ida stated as he grabbed his bag and pulled Shiro and Shoto up with him, the two grabbing their own bags. Shinso, do not forget Denki. Shoto commanded as he pointed to the sleeping Omega who was draped over Shinso's lap. Believe I can't, he gets clingy when he's asleep or tired, so if even try to stand without grabbing him, he'll cling to me regardless. Shinso stated with a laugh as he grabbed Denki and put the blonde on his hip while he grabbed both of their bags. The other three then grabbed their bags as the group then walked to their gate and boarded the plane. The group thankfully was one of the few people in first class. Katsuki and Aijiro both grabbed Izuku and led him to sit in the same row as them. Izuku was not at all fighting against the two as he took his seat and happily chose a movie for the three to watch during their flight. Once having landed, the group quickly grabbed their bags from baggage claim and got to their rental car, which thankfully was the same kind of car that they had originally had, only bigger. And just as before, Izuku and Denki made quick work of creating a nest in the very back of the car, though this time being assisted by Shoto, who inevitably joined the two in the nest once they were finished. So, how long will this drive be? And if we stop at a gas station, will you three get into another brawl? 'Cause if you do, I want to be able to video it. So, I need a heads up. Denki shouted while Shinso groaned at the reminder of what had happened. Kirishima merely shook his head as he looked to his husband, Bakugu only cackling at the memory. Oh, don't worry Duracell, you'll get your video. Bakugu shouted from the passenger seat, while Kirishima punched his shoulder in return. The alpha sat in the driver's seat beside the blonde, while Shiro, Ida, and Shinso all sat together in the other row of seats behind the two celestials. In right, you angry Pomeranian. Know what? Denki, get your phone ready. Who needs a FNG gas station? Shinso challenged while Bakugu turned to the purple-haired alpha. Alright, eyebags, out of the car. Let's do this. Bakugu ordered as the two growled at each other. For the love of us. Both of you act like children. Stop it. Do not make me freeze both of your buttes to your seats. Shoto chastised while Shiro laughed at his mate's threat, Ida merely nodding to Shoto, approving of his mate's decision of potential disciplinary action. Shoto just mothered you both. Denki laughed while Shoto smiled smugly, Shinso and Bakugu merely growling quietly in return. Shoto is correct, you're both acting like children. We are gods and demigods. We do not act like overzealous teenagers looking for a brawl. Ida chastised while Bakugu flipped the other god off, Ida then lecturing. The blonde once more in response. Once the group had gotten on the road after Ida had finished lecturing Bakugu, the car fell into a dead silence, all except for the small whispers between the three in the back. Though Izuku and Denki both fell silent as they cringed at the déjà vu they got from the state the car was in. Quickly the two pulled out their phones and motioned for Shoto to do the same. Denki, Izuku, and Shoto chat. Candy cane. Why are we texting? We're sitting right next to each other? Green bean. Because they're all being weird again and it's weird to talk to each other when it's so quiet that they could hear us. Pikachu. Also, we like feeling sneaky. Candy cane. That's fair. Why are they all so quiet though? Hanta usually starts up some kind of conversation if things get awkward. Pikachu. He probably can sense the obvious tension between Hitoshi and Bakugo, and he probably doesn't want to start a brawl. Candy cane. I see, though that Pomeranian always starts some kind of brawl with someone, whether it be friendly or deadly is depending. Pikachu. Not gonna lie though, it's funny to watch. Alpha gets so but hurt over the stupidest things. Green bean. Yeah, usually they do. But why do you guys keep calling Bakugo a Pomeranian? Candy cane. Izuku, it's the hair. Pikachu. That and he acts like one of those mean little scrappy dogs. Green bean. Okay, I can understand why because of how he acts, but his hair doesn't look like a Pomeranian's, it looks more like a dandelion. At the comment both Shoto and Denki had to stifle their laughter with their hands as they choked on their own held-in shouts of laughter, before responding to Izuku's comment, though the male looking at the two questioningly. Pikachu? Oh, gods, I'm using that one. Oh, that's too perfect. Denki responded as he snickered quietly, rereading Izuku's comment while Shoto laughed quietly. Green bean, I don't get it? It looks more like a dandelion than a Pomeranian, and why is it funny? Candy cane, don't worry about it Izuku, just know that you have created something appealing at this moment. Pikachu, yes indeed, something appealing that we will use against that angry dandelion. The rest of the car ride was filled with silence, except for the quiet giggles and snickers coming from the very back of the car, Shoto nor Denki being able to stop laughing at Izuku's comment. Though once they stopped, the three looked out of the car and saw that they had stopped at a gas station. Denki immediately grabbed his phone and prepared his camera, just in case something were to happen. The Omegas then jumped out of the car and ran inside, the three having grown tired of being stuck in the back seat, despite their very comfortable nest. Once the three were inside, they all quickly grabbed their desired snacks and lunches, paying for their food and drinks as they sat outside on a shaded bench area. Okay, I'm getting some déjà vu here, so if history repeats itself, then Hitoshi, Bakugo, and Kirishima are going to come wrestling out of those doors any second. Denki stated as he pointed to the doors to the gas station. Denki, please, I just want to eat my lunch in peace. Don't jinx us. Izuku whined as he then took a large bite of his ramen to emphasize his point. I doubt it will happen, Tenya would stop them, and Hanta would most likely help him unless he found it too entertaining. Shoto stated while Denki groaned. Izuku. Shoto wasn't here for it the first time, we can't let him miss the appealing opportunity to see something that funny. Denki stated while Izuku only shook his head. Just as the three fell into a comfortable silence, Siro then came running over, only to lose his breath as he reached the three, laughing hysterically. Oh guys! As Shinso and Katsuki got into again. Idru and Tenya are trying to break them up now, but I got it all on video. Oh come on! Yes. After Bakugo and Shinso were once again scolded, not only by Izuku but by Ida and Shoto, they began their trip to Creaty's temple once again. And soon everyone fell asleep, all except for Kirishima and Bakugo, the two keeping each other company as the trip lasted far into the night. Though they all woke up when they heard Bakugo slam the trunk, the blonde carrying in the last of the bags into the small hotel they stopped at. Hey guys! Come on, we're stopping here for the night so we can all get cleaned up and have breakfast in the morning. Kirishima stated as he opened the backseat door. Once everyone had gotten inside the hotel, Bakugo passed out the room keys, though Denki looking at the blonde confused when he noticed Izuku wasn't given the same on as one of the other couples, or his own. Hey, where's Izuku's? Denki asked while Kirishima and Bakugo looked at the blonde Omega questioningly. Obviously he's with us Duracell. What? Shinso and Denki shouted while Kirishima only grabbed Izuku and pulled the smaller male to his chest. already regretting not listening to Bakugu's idea to just take Izuku out of the car and bring him to their room before waking everyone else up. Don't worry guys, I don't mind. Besides, we're all tired, it's not like it's going to kill anyone, Izuku stated as he grabbed Kirishima's hands that were wrapped around his shoulders, resting his head on the redhead's arms, the Omega's head still fogged from his fatigue. Both Kirishima and Bakugu rumbling quietly to Izuku at the action. Are you sure, Izuku? Shinso asked while Izuku only nodded his head as he tried to drag Kirishima to the elevator, wanting nothing more than to just get in bed, while the redhead only laughed quietly as he allowed the smaller male to drag him by his hands. You heard him. I'm tired, we are going to bed. Shoto stated as he grabbed his mate's hands and followed after Izuku and Kirishima to the elevators. Bakugu only gave Shinso and Denki a smug smirk in response. Denki only rolled his eyes fondly at Bakugu as he followed the rest of the group, though Shinso glaring at the god for a moment in response. Bakugu returning the glare full force. Both of the alphas then walked away to join their mates, still continuing to side-eye each other until their mates took away their attention once again. After the group had woken up that morning, gotten cleaned up and dressed, repacked, and ate some breakfast, they all piled up into the car and began the rest of the trip. Thankfully, the second half would be shorter than the first. Okay, I don't care what y'all got to say. We're playing a game and talking to each other today. No more of this stupid silent treatment sheet. Denki declared while everyone looked at the blonde questioningly. What should we play, Denki? Shoto asked while Denki then smirked. Let's play Truth or Dare. Oh yes, the joyous game where friendships die and enemies are born, Shinso stated sarcastically while Denki merely rolled his eyes at his boyfriend, everyone else nodding their heads in agreement. And so, for the next few hours, the group played Truth or Dare until they finally had to stop, Bakugu and Shinso getting a bit carried away with what they were daring the other to do. Though after the game, everyone fell asleep except for Kirishima and Izuku, with Kirishima driving and Izuku staring out the window. Though the Omega didn't fail to notice that Bakugu had fallen asleep, leaving the redhead alone in the front seat. So, when Kirishima stopped to get gas, Izuku joined him outside of the car. Hey, Kirishima, the redhead jumped slightly at the sudden voice, having thought Izuku was asleep along with the others. Hey, Izuku. Didn't know you were up. Kirishima stated as he paid for the gas and walked into the gas station, Izuku trailing close behind him. I didn't really want to sleep, I don't ever feel rested if I do and I'm not already tired. Yeah, don't blame you, I get the same way. The two talked quietly as they walked through the aisles of the gas station, Izuku picking out some snacks that he knew that Denki, Shinso, and Shoto would like, while Kirishima got a few things for Bakugu, Shiro, and Ida. After they paid for the food, Kirishima set the snacks and drinks for Shiro, Ida, and Bakugu next to each of them, while Izuku did the same for Shinso, Shoto, and Denki, only for Kirishima to gently lead Izuku by his waist to the front of the car. You can sit in the front if you want, so that way we don't have to just sit by ourselves for the next 3 hours. Kirishima offered while Izuku looked into the car and saw a still sleeping Bakugu. What about Bakugu? He won't mind if I move him. Or if you want, we can leave him there and you two can just share the seat, the seats are large enough. Kirishima offered while Izuku blushed slightly at the idea, though inevitably just held up 2 fingers and nodded. Kirishima understood that Izuku was agreeing to the second option. After Kirishima had helped Izuku into the seat, making sure to not wake up Bakugu, though Izuku didn't truly mind that he was nearly in the blonde's lap while he was in the front seat, finding the natural warmth from the blonde comforting. After about 2 hours, Izuku soon joined the rest in the realm of sleep. His legs hung over Bakugu's lap while his head rested on the blonde's shoulder. Kirishima merely smiled at the sight. Pride and relief filled his chest when he realized that Izuku was growing more comfortable with them. Though after a few minutes Bakugu soon woke up, though immediately tensing when he felt a weight on his chest, only to relax and force his entire form still once he saw who it was on his chest. The blonde looked to Kirishima for somewhat of an explanation, though careful as to not wake up the sleeping Omega on his chest. While Kirishima chuckled at the blonde's confused look, while quietly whispering to the blonde about how Izuku was still awake and had taken the offer to sit up front with the two of them, only to inevitably fall asleep on Bakugo. The blonde smirked pridefully throughout the entire story, pleased that their Omega had placed enough trust in them to fall asleep with them there, especially on top of Bakugo. The two gods took notice in the hotel that Izuku stayed to the far end of his bed away from the gods the night before, hesitant to allow himself to fall asleep. And even once he did, he was tense and uncomfortable. So, the two were relieved that possibly Izuku was gaining trust in them. Once the group had reached the temple, Bakugo slowly unbuckled himself and Izuku, taking care to carry the Omega gently, praying he didn't wake up the male. Though Kirishima taking care to help Bakugo get out of the car so the blonde could transfer the green-haired male over to him. Kirishima smiled dopily at the sight of the man curled up in his arms, honestly debating if they should wake the others up so he and his husband could enjoy their time of peace with Izuku. So, Kirishima gently sat himself down beside a tree while Bakugo got into the trunk and started to rifle through a few things before pulling out the replica of Izuku's crown. Neither truly liked the replica all that much. It didn't hold the same significance that the true one did. But they supposed it would have to do. Should we make them wear the chitons again? It was funny as shit to see eye bags get worked up over it. Bakugo questioned cruelly, while Kirishima merely rolled his eyes. Even if we tried, Ida would rat us out, Kirishima answered, while Bakugo merely huffed. Fine, should we wake them up then? No. Not until Izuku wakes up. I already know that Shinso will give us the death glare for this if he sees it. And I want to enjoy my time of peace. Kirishima answered while Bakugo nodded. Would it be going too far if we asked Izuku to just call us Idru and Katsuki? It's getting weird to hear him call us by our surname. And I miss being called Ichan. Kirishima questioned while Bakugo looked off in thought. I don't want to push our luck, but it does feel weird hearing him call us by our surname. He only ever called me Kaken. I guess I'd be fine with Katsuki. Bakugo answered while Kirishima nodded gruffly. Though the two both tensed when they heard twigs snap behind them. The two transformed into their god forms, Kirishima still holding Izuku. Though the male woke up due to the change in aura from the gods. Only to flinch at the sight of the two in their god forms. The Omega had forgotten how large and honestly intimidating they look in their forms. Kirishima immediately noticed the Omega wake, as he set Izuku down gently behind him. The man stayed close behind, staring into the woods where the gods glared murderously. Daring anything or anyone to dare try and take a chance with them. Idru? Katsuki? At the sound of the familiar voice both gods untensed once they saw Earphone Jack walk out of the woods, lowering the hood on her cloak to reveal her face. The woman was of petite size, only barely the same height as Denki, even in her godly form. While she dressed in a black cloak that covered her form, hiding her in the shadows of the woods. Though underneath she wore a black leather jacket, long salmon-colored shirt with several rips at the collar and hem, black breaths and boots, with laces of gold sewn across the hem of her shirt and jacket, along with gold chains attached to her boots. Her hair a short chin length, while the color is a dark purple with an asymmetrical fringe, and the two earphone jack-like earrings that were attached to her ears, the accessories reaching to her shoulders, while her eyes were a dark brown, and two red marks rested below her eyes. Earphone Jack. Thank goodness you revealed yourself. Or Katsuki and I might have fired. Kirishima sighed in relief as the woman looked between the gods with tears in her eyes. You a-holes. You leave for over 400 years. Only to show up here and give me a heart attack. And you dash dot. The woman then cut herself off once she saw Izuku. The goddess then ran past Kirishima to envelop the man in a hug. Izuku! Holy shit, you're alive! The woman cheered while Izuku hugged her back gently. Despite having no idea who she was. I am. But I'm sorry I don't remember you. There is a lot to explain. But I can tell we were close. You feel familiar in a strange way. Izuku stated while Earphone Jack then looked to the two gods with a shocked look. Earphone Jack, I'm afraid there is far more to discuss than just Izuku's lack of memories, but first we need to speak to Creaty and we need to introduce everyone once again. Shoto then stated, catching everyone off guard as the goddess walked out from behind the car. I dash. Shoto. You're here too? Earphone Jack asked while Shoto gave the woman a small smile and nodded. I am not the only one, Shoto stated as Siro and Ida quickly jumped out of the car. The two were still drugged by sleep, though having woken up due to the aura of aggression that had come from the two other gods. Holy, I guess the whole gang is back together, huh? Earphone Jack joked while Shoto nodded. And I suppose you could say we are adding 2 more people to our group, Shoto stated as he went around the car and woke up Denki and Shinso. The two stepped out of the car with sheepish smiles on their faces. Hello, I'm Denki Kaminari, demigoddess of lighting and storms. Nice to meet you. Denki stated with a smile while Earphone Jack nodded to him. The woman letting go of Izuku. Hitoshi Shinso, demigod of death. A pleasure. Shinso stated with a polite nod while Earphone Jack gave her curt nod in response. I am Earphone Jack, goddess of music and kindness. Though Kyukajiro is fine too. Kyuka stated while the two demis nodded to her. You said you needed to talk to Creaty? The Omega asked as she turned to the two gods. We do. Is she here? Kirishima asked while Kyuka nodded. Follow me. We had to hide the temple better here lately. Creaty felt a disturbance of some kind, and she was worried that something would try to come here. So, it's practically a maze trying to find the temple. I've still gotten lost a couple of times, only Creaty can truly make sense of it all. Kyuka stated while the group followed her. Why would she not teach you how to find your way around it? Is your temple not in the same manner as hers? Ida asked while Kyuka shook her head. We conjoined our temples in the past 50 years. But that's why we have been keeping them well hidden. So far, we haven't gotten any response of conjoining our temples. But it could just be a matter of time. Kyuka stated. Do the priests and spiritual leaders not give you any sort of grievance over conjoining them? Have you revealed your marriage and your mating as well? Shoto asked while Kyuka shook her head. We haven't made any sort of official announcement of it, but it's most likely a known thing at this point. But the spiritual leaders have done nothing. If anything, they seemed pleased. That is strange, though at the same time it's good. It shows that mortals are maturing. Siro stated while everyone nodded. Here we are. Home sweet home, right? Kyuka joked at the large glistening golden gates that surrounded the entire temple and acres of land behind it. Dimin. And I thought your temple was huge show. Denki exclaimed while everyone chuckled. You'll find that my wife enjoys the finer things in life, and she can't stand a cramped space, Kyuka stated with a small laugh while she led everyone inside. Once inside, Shinso, Denki, and Izuku looked around at the temple in awe. Now seeing the true nature of Creaty's choice of design. Everything was in either a plum purple, black, gold, silver, or red. Hun. Please, I need you here. Kyuka yelled hesitantly, while the other gods looked at the woman questioningly, all questioning why there was hesitance. While in a swift and nearly uncatchable moment a large woman was standing before Kyuka. The god quickly began to fret over the shorter woman. The god was of tall stature, practically twice the size of Kyuka. Long black hair fell long past her shoulders, while half of it was held in a long braid that held back some of her bangs, though a few slipping out of the braid and framing her face. The woman's eyes were a gray-silver color while the god had quite the mature physique. She was adorned in a high-collared, sleeveless crimson leotard with silver lines at her waist and around her arms, which was open to expose her skin from her neck to just below her navel, while sporting calf-length red boots with heels, with 2 gold utility belts around her waist, another thinner one around the top portion of her chest, below her shoulders, while a glistening golden cloak was attached to her neck. Kyuka, darling, are you all right? Why was there fear in your dash dot? The god began to fret, only for her attention to be taken by the others behind her wife. Darling, by the Katsuki, Aijuru, and Izuku? You are alive. The god asked while Kyuka set a gentle hand on her wife's shoulder, hoping to settle the alpha. There is much to explain. But Creaty, is everything all right? You seem unwell. Ida asked as he hesitantly walked forward to his friend. I am as well as I can be. But there is something wrong. Creaty stated as she began to walk away from the group, a dazed look in her eyes while Kyuka looked to them apologetically before following after her wife. Trying to settle the alpha. Creaty, sit please, if there is something wrong allow us to help you. Siro stated as he helped Kyuka lead the woman to one of the lounge areas, the rest of the following after hesitantly, careful to be as gentle as possible. Thank you. But you too. I almost presumed you dead by the way humanity has been here recently. Creaty stated as she pointed to the two celestials. What's wrong with humanity? Kirishima asked while Create held her head in her hands, leaning on her knees slightly. There is more violence. War is uncontrolled. And anger and fear have been spreading. I feared that something had happened to you both to cause such an uproar. Creaty stated while Kirishima's and Bakugu's eyes widened. What? That shouldn't be possible. I have given not clearance or permission for war. Bakugu shouted, clearly angry that his power was undermined. It must be Shigaraki. Since he's back there is no telling what he's trying to do. Siro stated while Kyuka and Creaty both looked at the group with widened eyes. What? Creaty and Kyuka shouted while the group looked at them. We have a lot to explain, Siro stated while Kyuka and Creaty looked at each other. After having explained everything, Creaty and Kyuka were left wide-eyed while Kirishima and Bakugu were left in a state of bitter anger at having to be reminded of what Shigaraki was trying and had already tried to do. Well, that explains a lot. But you are trying to find out what is tying Izuku to the CYCL, correct? Creaty asked while everyone nodded. Simple. You must go to the last place he was at before he. There you will find what is tying him to the CYCL. But it could be anything. And you need to get there quickly. Creaty stated while everyone looked at her questioningly. But is something going to happen? Shoto asked while Creaty nodded. Yes, you need to find the totem before the winter solstice, which is in 3 days. When the blood moon hits, it will give Shigaraki great strength, and it will be much harder to defeat him. And based on past events of what has happened on the winter solstice, I doubt we want to repeat that. Especially if this is Izuku's last chance, Creaty explained while everyone paled. We'll never get to Tentai before the solstice. Not with human transportation. And we can't use magic to teleport us to Tentai. Mortals cannot enter Tentai with magic. Kirishima shouted while Bakugu gripped the redhead's arm tightly. You're right, they can't, but they can go in through a portal. Or more specifically the Hades portal. Creaty stated. So, we need to go to the Underworld and go through the portal so we can get to Tentai? Shoto asked while Creaty nodded. Well, I guess it's time to go see dear old Pops and Dad. Denki, I hope you're ready to meet my parents. Shinso said jokingly while Denki paled further. Oh gods, Denki muttered as he paled further. But for now, let's put this aside. I haven't introduced myself yet. I am Creaty, god of humanity and creation. Though Momo Yoerzu will work just as well. A pleasure to meet you. Hitoshi Shinso, demigod of death. A pleasure as well. Deni Kaminari, demigoddess of lighting and storms. Nice to meet you. Well, I suppose we need a new plan now, don't we? Shoto asked us. Everyone nodded. The trip itself to the gate to the Underworld took a day and a half, Momo and Kyuka both wishing the group luck, while the two had to stay behind to keep an eye on humanity and make sure things didn't become far more complicated. But once reaching the famous temple, the one that was rumored to have the gate to the Underworld, the group was crestfallen to see that inside there seemed to be no such portal, or Eraserhead and Present Mic for that matter. Though none of the gods could truly say if they knew the rumor to be true or not. The gods have always traveled to the Underworld by magic, but in a similar predicament, mortals or demigods could not travel to the Underworld by magic. Sheet. This is their godly temple. Would it not be here? Bakugu cursed while Shinso then took to a drawing on one of the temple walls. The drawing was that of a small cat, with a name spelled out in ancient runes, which Shinso easily translated to Hito. Hey guys! I found our portal! Shinso shouted while everyone came over to him, only to see the barren wall, Bakugu huffing quietly at the purple-haired alpha. Eyebags, this ain't a Finji joke. We need to find the portal. Bakugo scolded while Shinso merely rolled his eyes as he summoned some of his magic to his fingertips, as he gently pushed on the small drawing. Only for the wall to crumble away as a swirling black and gold portal appeared. "Oh, you mean like this one? I think I know my parents pretty well, Bakugo," Shinso stated as he stepped into the portal. Denki, Shoto, and Izuku soon followed in after him, while the other gods walked in after the Omegas. Though when all of them stepped in through the portal, they all walked into a darkened hallway, with tapestries hanging from the walls as a red carpet was draped through the hallway. "Now this is the old-timey ancient temple I expected," Denki exclaimed while Siro nodded to the blonde. Though everyone tensed as a loud thumping sound came echoing through the hallway, slowly coming closer to them, the gods quickly transforming into their godly forms. Only to see a very large black panther come from around the corner and practically tackle Shinso. The alpha merely laughed at the cat's behavior. "Well, hello there BSTRD. I see you've gotten big," Shinso stated with a bit of a laugh, while everyone looked at him shocked. "Have you been to the Underworld before, Shinso?" Siro asked, exasperated. "Of course, I have. I was born here. And my dad would constantly bring me here so we could visit my pops. My dad was kind of clingy to him, so we visited frequently until he died, I guess. But we never went by the portal. My dad was just able to transport here by some weird kind of bracelet. Never really knew what it was." "Okay, but what's with the FING murder cat? And not to mention his name," Kirishima shouted while Shinso laughed. "What? My pops named him and we are cat people. Now come on, he'll lead us to my parents," Shinso stated as he allowed the panther to lead him down the hallways. Denki and Izuku followed after him quickly, while Shoto then transformed back and followed the three. The other gods just looked at each other in shock, before they too transformed back and followed after Shinso. After a few minutes of walking, the group came upon a tower of stairs while they all groaned, though the gods and Shoto remembered the cruelty of their old teacher's lessons, so they weren't all that surprised. Once finally reaching the top, they came upon a throne room where two figures sat in identical thrones, a crystal orb levitating in front of them, both of them sharing solemn looks. "Mother, father, it's good to see you both again. I brought guests," Shinso stated with a smirk similar to Eraserhead's, while the goddess and present Mike both stood quickly before running over to hug their son. Eraserhead was dressed in a baggy black outfit that consists of a long-sleeved shirt and matching breaths that tuck into his boots, silver adorning his form with small bracelets that were wrapped around his arms, while a silver scarf was wrapped around his neck. The goddess himself was a slender and tall, pale-skinned man with messy, shoulder-length black hair that partially hangs in front of his face. His eyes were a deep black, while his pupils were a pure white. Present Mike was dressed in a black jacket with a very tall collar, upturned and complete with studs, and matching black breaths and knee-high boots. While he also sports tan shoulder pads and a red belt and elbow pads, all studded, and black fingerless gloves. While the demigod himself was a tall, slim man, slightly taller than the goddess next to him. He has long blonde hair which he wore half of it in a man bun of sorts while the rest fell far past his shoulders. His eyes were greenish-yellow color. "It's about time you come to visit us, Hitoshi. I take it you found the portal simple enough?" Eraserhead asked as he gently slapped the back of Shinso's head. "I did, and really that old nickname? Hey, just be happy I didn't use something else," Eraserhead stated while he and present Mike then looked over to their sons, guests, only for their eyes to widen at the sight of Izuku. "Problem child. You're alive?" Eraserhead shouted as he ran over to the male, though quickly noticing that the Omega's aura and scent were off as he looked to Kirishima and Bakugo for an explanation. "Okay, I hope this is the last time we have to explain this," Kirishima huffed as he looked to his husband for help, only for Bakugo to groan quietly. After having explained everything and present Mike revealing that he is far older than 400 years old, along with Denki introducing himself and revealing he was Shinso's boyfriend. To which Eraserhead looked to his son with a look that screamed, "Really a loud blonde," though deciding he could get his answers later. Though Eraserhead could only look at the two Celestials with a worried look. "You only have barely a day left. By midnight tomorrow. It could be too late." Eraserhead stated while Bakugo and Kirishima nodded curtly, Izuku merely fidgeting with his hands nervously. Eraserhead, do you have any idea what the totem could be? Izuku asked while Eraserhead shook his head. Problem child, my name is Aizawa Shota, present mix name is Yamada Hisashi. Though I believe you already knew that. You all can just use our names. It's strange hearing you all call me Eraserhead. Except you Hitoshi. You call me Pops. If you call me by my name, I will smack the sheet out of you. Aizawa threatened while Shinso raised his hands in surrender, Siro merely patting the alpha's shoulders sympathetically. But kids, you guys can't all go onto Mount Tentai to help Izuku. For Izuku to get back to normal, the setting needs to be practically identical to how it was when he was cursed. Hisashi stated while everyone went wide-eyed. I'm not leaving Izuku. Denki and Shoto shouted in unison, both Omegas then looking to each other and nodding, both grabbing onto each other to emphasize their point. Kaminari. Shoto. I'm afraid this isn't a suggestion. It is what needs to happen. And right now, you don't have the time to argue. Katsuki, Aidru, Izuku. Go through the portal now. You don't have the time to waste. Aizawa commanded as he opened the portal to Mount Tentai with his hand, a swirling red, orange, and green portal opening as Kirishima and Bakugo grabbed Izuku as the three walked to the portal. Izuku only was able to look back once as everyone looked at them with concerned and scared expressions, and Izuku prayed that they didn't fail. Once Izuku, Kirishima, and Bakugo stepped through the portal, it closed behind them and Izuku was in awe at the sight of the floating mountain, the man looking over the side to see the multiple waterfalls that seemed to run off the side of the mountain, into the clouds that held up the ginormous floating mountain. Welcome home, Izuku. Kirishima breathed out happily, both gods feeling their powers increase due to being in their domain once again. Whoa, Izuku trailed off as he marveled at the gorgeous sight, only to see a ginormous temple in front of the trio. Okay, whose temple is that? I thought Momo had the biggest one. Izuku shouted, exasperated at the sheer size of the temple. Definitely not Deku. But this is our shared temple. Bakugo explained while Izuku looked at the blonde with a look of question. What do you mean shared temple? Did we combine our temples as Momo and Kyuka did? No, we still have separate temples. But we created this one for us all to share. For it to be our home. While our individual temples are mainly for rituals and other work stuff, or just things the others didn't want in our home. Kirishima explained while Izuku nodded, laughing quietly at the statement. Come on, we only have a few hours until the solstice. We need to hurry and find the totem. Kirishima commanded while the other two nodded. Bakugo and Kirishima then led Izuku to the biggest temple. Their home. Though the moment they walked into the temple, Izuku immediately noticed the three large staffs that rested on their individual pedestals. The staff on the left had a black base, while a deep orange slowly faded into a brighter shade of orange, only for a golden sun-shaped jewel attached at the very top to shine brightly as if it was powered by the sun itself. While the one on the right had a crimson base, while it slowly faded into a pitch black, as a silver crescent moon-shaped jewel sat at the top of the staff, the jewel illuminating in a calm yet iridescent glow. And in the middle, a staff with a dark green base slowly faded into black, only for it to fade into a bright mint green where silver stars decorated the staff from the very top to the bottom. A pure white star-shaped jewel sitting at the very top of the staff, the jewel reminding Izuku of the North Star. Though unlike the two besides it, the jewel's glow was barely even there. Practically dying. And Izuku couldn't help the anxiety that filled his gut when he saw the slowly fading glow of the jewel. These are our staffs. We can summon them at will, they help us harness our powers, so that way we don't accidentally harm someone else or ourselves when we need to fight. Kirishima explained as he walked forward to the pedestals, gesturing to the staffs. But I saw you fight without your staff. You both used your powers. You know how to control your magic. Izuku stated while Bakugo shook his head. You only saw us use a small portion of our powers, Izuku. If we don't take care to restrain ourselves or use our staffs to harness our raw power, well, I believe the mortals have made enough stories of how we nearly destroyed the earth for you to understand what we can do. Kirishima explained sheepishly. We restrained ourselves so we wouldn't harm you or anyone else that day when Shigaraki showed up, Bakugo stated gruffly while Izuku nodded. The Omega shivered slightly as a cold breeze blew into the temple. Only for Izuku to turn his head and see the crouching form of Shigaraki, the man having a sick and twisted smile on his face. Shigaraki! Izuku screamed as Bakugo and Kirishima then turned quickly, both transforming within an instant. As Shigaraki charged at the three, Kirishima immediately grabbing Izuku and pushing the man out of the way as Bakugo charged back at Shigaraki, the two meeting in the middle as they fought. Izuku, run now! Kirishima ordered. His voice distorted into the deep and soul-shaking echo as Izuku then ran out of the temple. As Izuku ran past the temple that he could tell was Bakugo's due to the large sun symbol on the top of it, he came into a forested area. Though his hesitation to run into the wooded area soon left him as he heard the two roars that came from Bakugo and Kirishima. After a few minutes of running, Izuku stumbled across a strangely familiar cave of sorts. The cave was covered by a small waterfall, the water beautifully crystal clear. Though Izuku decided to take appreciation for the beauty later as he then jumped into the water and swam underneath the waterfall and into the cave. Though as he remerged and crawled into the cave, the Omega was taken by surprise to see that a few dusty rugs and pelts decorated the cave. Jewels hanging from the sides while a few oil lamps were surrounded by a slew of notebooks, a few open and incredibly dusty. Izuku slowly crawled closer to the notebooks and lamps, the male then trying for a minute or two to light the lamps, thankful when he was finally able to bring some light into the cave as he then grabbed one of the notebooks and dusted it off, only for his eyes to widen at the sight of the cover. The Journal of the Gods. Creator Izuku Bakugo Kirishima. I made this? Maybe it'll help me figure out what the totem is. Izuku muttered to himself as he began to read through the journal, thankful that most of the entrees were in a language he could understand. Though after what seemed like an eternity of reading book after book, Izuku had relieved many different moments from his past life throughout the process, soon realized his habit of forgetting things was something he has had since his first life. His mates had given him the idea to start his journals to help him remember. Though once the Omega then came to the last one, he realized there was only one entree. I am starting this notebook not to record memories of me and my friends, but because I never want to forget this time. And I cannot wait to show it to them and my husbands when they arrive, though today I plan to tell Shoto when we go out on our walk with Tenya. I want his and Kyuka's help to surprise Kakin and Iai-chan with the news. I know they'll be excited to be fathers. After reading that last sentence, Izuku dropped the book as the candles blew out. Though with Kirishima and Bakugo, the two were still fighting against Shigaraki. The two tried their hardest to buy Izuku as much time as possible to find the totem before it was too late, or before Shigaraki could find him wherever he was hiding. Both gods were bloody and slowly losing their composure, though having to remind themselves of what had happened the last time they lost their composure when fighting Shigaraki, willing themselves to not make the same mistake. The two were fearful that if they truly lost their composure, they would not only destroy the earth but Mount Tentai as well, where they both would be to blame for the final demise of their husband. You two have lost your bite. You've changed in these past 400 years. Are you that worried over a mortal? How pathetic! Shigaraki taunted cruelly. As both of the gods continued to grow rageful, they both knew that Shigaraki wanted them to destroy the earth and Mount Tentai. Seeing as he could not do it himself, he needed them to do it for him, so that they would not only give him the broken world he so desired to rule over but also destroy themselves and the other gods in the process, leaving no one to fight against him. Were you, I would learn to shut the F up. Bakugo roared as he directed an attack for the Alpha, only for Shigaraki to attempt to disintegrate his staff. Bakugo pulled away quickly in response, making him miss his target. Though Kirishima then charged forward at the shadow-like Alpha. His skin hardened as he plowed into the man, causing Shigaraki to go flying back, only for shadows to rise from the ground and grabbed the redhead, restraining him. Bakugo then ran to his husband to release him. As Bakugo ran to Kirishima's aid, Shigaraki created a powerful blast, though as he fired it, a white shield appeared in front of the two gods. Both of the alphas looked at the shield and behind Shigaraki with widened eyes. The two were frozen in shock. Though as Shigaraki turned around, the man paled at the sight of the goddess, a deadly and unforgiving aura surrounding the celestial. Shigaraki quickly went to attack the goddess in desperation, only for the northern star-jeweled staff to hit the ground forcefully, quickly trapping the alpha in a tight band of stars. Why you? How? I killed you. You were meant to die. You dash dot. Shigaraki began to scream, only to be cut off as a venomous hiss escaped the goddess as he leaned down and grabbed the alpha by his throat, choking him unforgivingly. I am Deku, the celestial goddess of the stars, the arts, and of healing. And you stole everything from me. Deku roared, his voice distorted as the same soul-shaking echo as the two gods. The goddess was adorned in an emerald green bodysuit, with a red belt attached at his waist, a white star pendant resting on the hilt of the belt, while silver chains fell from the belt, along with a few silver and gold bracelets adorning his arms, his boots a crimson red, while a golden and tattered cape adorned his shoulders. The goddess himself was shorter than the two other celestials, though still standing at the very least 6 feet 3 inches with a toned build. His eyes were a viridian green that matched his fluffy and chin-length hair, while white star freckles adorned his face, as a few faded scars were scattered along his face. His expression in between a mixture of pure rage and uncontrollable grief and agony. The band of stars began to tighten around Shigaraki, a sickening crack echoing from the shadow's body. Shigaraki cried out in frustration and pain as the band began to crush his ribs. Shigaraki, you have proven yourself to be of the lowest form of life. And for your attempts of killing the goddess Deku, you are hereby charged with the highest crime of treason and sentenced to death. Kirishima stated coldly as he and Bakugo walked forward to the alpha. May Tartarus welcome you with cold and cruel hands, Bakugo cursed as the three brought their staffs into the air before slamming them down onto the ground. A bright spiral of light then wrapped around Shigaraki, burning the shadow into nothing but ash as he screamed. Though once the spiral disappeared, Kirishima and Bakugo allowed their staffs to vanish as they looked to Deku. The goddess stared at the burned part of the ground with disdain. Izuku, do you remember us? Do you remember what happened? Bakugo asked hesitantly, though, at the sound of the alpha's voice, Deku dropped his staff as it vanished, the goddess falling to his knees as he clutched his stomach and sobbed. The two gods quickly kneeled to Deku, both of them grabbing the Omega and bringing him to their chests. Tai-chan. But I'm sorry, the Omega sobbed while Kirishima and Bakugo both flinched slightly at the use of their respective nicknames, though both immediately broke into tears and sobs as they cried happily at the revelation that they had their mate back. You have nothing to apologize for, Izuku. You're back, you're here. You remember us. Kirishima stated as a watery laugh escaped him, though he and Bakugo immediately looked at each other as they pulled away from Izuku slightly, not only to wipe the Omega's tears but to pull down the cape that covered Izuku's shoulders and neck. Once doing so, it revealed the two scars on either side of Izuku's neck that symbolized Izuku was theirs. Their mate, their husband. Either they're effing there. Bakugo cheered quietly as his sob racked his body, leaning his head onto Izuku's shoulder, revealing in the sight of his mark prominent on Izuku's neck. Kirishima and Bakugo both then began to kiss Izuku's face and neck, both of them wrapping their arms around Izuku, neither willing to let their mate go. Though Izuku could only continue to sob as he latched onto the two. Pebble. What's wrong? Are you all right? Were you injured? Kirishima fretted instantly, sensing his Omega's growing grief and agony. Bakugo soon sensed the emotions as well. Both alphas staring at Izuku worriedly. He killed them. Turgon. I did my best. But he still killed them. Izuku sobbed as he buried his head into Bakugo's shoulder, the Omega then screaming out in agony and frustration as his sobs became screams of pure pain. Both alphas then immediately sandwiched Izuku in between the two of them, their hearts shattering at the sight of their mate being in so much agony when they had just gotten him back. Oh, baby, who did he kill? Bakugo asked frantically, the alpha growing furious at the fact that Shigaraki was still causing his Omega such pain, even after he was dead. To the baby. Or child, I was PPRGNT. I wanted T to surprise why you both. I was going to tell a Shoto that day. I want H's and Keikyuka's help T to surprise why you both. But he killed them. Izuku sobbed helplessly, while Bakugo and Kirishima both paled and went wide-eyed at the confession. Kirishima hesitantly brought his hand from behind Izuku to the Omega's stomach, Bakugo doing the same as he slowly dragged his hand down Izuku's chest to conjoin his hand with Kirishima's. Both of the gods then sensed the past life that once resided inside of the Omega. Both broke out a choked sob at the realization. The Alphas only being able to hug the Omega tightly in response. The Alphas both rejoiced in the fact that Izuku, their goddess, their Omega, their mate, their husband, was back and he would never leave them again. But they also joined Izuku in the mourning of their lost child, in the lost life that they were never given the chance to know. Their love, Denki, Shoto, Kyuka. Izuku yelled as he ran forward to the two. Both Omegas quickly met in the middle as they stared at their friend. Holy Siri, Izuku, we won? But holy shit, you're stupidly tall. Damn it, now I'm the shortest. Denki whined at the end as he looked up at Izuku. The Omega still in his godly form. I guess that's karma for all the times you made fun of Izuku being so short. Shinso joked while Denki whined. Izuku, quick. Turn back into human size. Denki shouted while Shinso laughed at his boyfriend. Izuku, I'm so happy to see you are back, Shoto stated as he hugged his friend tightly. Izuku returned the gesture as Shoto hummed in appreciation, Izuku's hugs now truly having the power to heal, and Shoto could feel it. While Kyuka quickly hugged her friend. Izuku returned the gesture as he smiled at his friend, though Kyuka cringed slightly when she realized she was once again the shortest. Yo, Denki. I don't think you have to worry about being the shortest. I think you beat me. Kyuka stated while Denki looked over to the goddess before laughing at his boyfriend. Though immediately hugging Kyuka in response. Izuku. Thank goodness, what of Shigaraki? Ida asked as he stepped forward to the Omegas. That BSTRD is long since dead. Tartarus will handle him. Kirishima stated proudly while everyone's eyes widened before nodding. Thank goodness, I hope you all were uninjured. We were all worried when you did not return or all for us to come to Tentai. Momo stated as Ida nodded to her statement. Yeah, are you guys okay? You know it's been a week since you left us in the Underworld. We all thought you were dead. Siro stated sassily while Bakugo barked out a laugh. You wish you could get rid of us. But we're better now. Bakugo answered, though trailing off at the end as he looked to Izuku. The Omega merely gave a small and sad smile to his mates. While Kirishima and Bakugo tensed at the sight, the two were still very on edge. Izuku, please do not lie. What happened? Shoto asked, immediately sensing his friend's grief and pain. While Izuku let out a watered laugh, tears welling up once more in his eyes. Though Kirishima and Bakugo made quick work of getting to either side of him, both hugging and comforting him the best they could. They too still feeling the grief of loss. Katsuki, Izuku, please allow us to help you. What happened? Ida asked while Izuku wiped his eyes before smiling sadly at his friends. Shoto, remember I told you I had to take care of some duties before we left? Izuku asked as he pulled out the journal, the cover worn and torn from the years of neglect, while Shoto nodded to his friend as Izuku handed the journal over to Shoto, the other two Omegas then leaning over the goddess's shoulder to read in the book as well. Though all three paled and went wide-eyed as they read the entree. Only for Kyuka to begin to cry as she ran forward to Izuku, hugging her friend tightly. While Denki and Shoto's eyes soon began to well with tears as they walked forward and joined in on the hug. Kyuka, Shoto, Denki, is everything all right? What on earth happened? Izuku, were you injured before? Momo asked frantically while Izuku shook his head. Then taking the book from Shoto's hands and handing it to Momo, silently asking her to explain it to the rest of them. Bakugo and Kirishima stood close to Izuku while they watched their friends' reactions carefully. Though once everyone else had read the entree, they all looked at Kirishima, Bakugo, and Izuku with sympathy. "Guys, I'm so sorry," Shiro stated as he handed Izuku the journal. Though the Omega then walked to the waterfall that they were standing at. The waterfall happening to be Kayamaru Falls and threw the book over the edge. "I won't ever be able to forget this. But I would much rather not have a totem again," Izuku stated while Kirishima and Bakugo walked over to their mate and hugged him protectively. "Okay, you know what? We just beat the worst person on Earth. We got Deku back. And we all looked hot as shit while doing it. This is a victory. It's about time we start acting like it is," Denki shouted while everyone turned to him and laughed. "What should we do then, Denki?" Izuku asked, smiling at his friend, thankful that he was able to brighten the mood. "Well, for one, we continue our road trip and keep having some fun. Maybe Hitoshi and Bakugo get into another brawl, who knows. Then we can go to the spiritual leaders and tell them to shut the F up cause the gods can speak for themselves. And we can clear up all the misconceptions." Denki cheered while everyone looked at each other before cheering alongside him. "Yeah, that's an awesome plan, bro. Let's effing do it." Kirishima cheered while everyone else nodded. "Fine. We may do this plan. You all behave, I will be coming along with you all to ensure that you do," Ida stated while Shoto and Shiro nodded, signaling that they would be joining their mate. "Well, you can count us in as well. Kyuka and I probably need a break," Momo stated shyly while Kyuka nodded vigorously. "Yes. No more mazes." Kyuka cheered before looking at her wife and smiling apologetically. "Haha, sorry babe," Kyuka apologized while Momo laughed at her mate. "Yeah, let's do it. Besides, Nizu probably thinks I'm dead," Izuku stated with a small laugh before Denki and Shinso both paled. "Oh, of our jobs," Shinso shouted while Denki groaned. "You two aren't working some stupid mortal jobs anymore, you know that, right? You both are official advisors to us three. So just pick a spot where you want your temple and let us know. We'll create portals so you can travel to all of our temples easily," Bakugo stated, unwilling to compromise on his decision. Both Izuku and Kirishima nodded to the statement. "Wait, hold up, you can do that?" Denki asked while Izuku laughed. "We're gods, Kami, not to mention we're celestials. Of course we can," Kirishima stated while Denki just shrugged his shoulders. "Well, sheet, okay then. Thanks," Shinso added in while he nodded to Bakugo, the blonde giving his own curt nod back. "Well, I don't know about all of you, but I want to get this road trip started now. Besides, I quite liked the nest we created in the car last time," Shoto stated while Kyuka looked at the fellow goddess with question. "Wait, nest? In a car? What?" Kyuka asked while the other three Omegas looked at each other before smiling widely. "Oh sheet, Kyuka, we gotta show you this. It's amazing. But I think we need a bigger car. Let's get a limo this time." Denki cheered while Kyuka just looked at the three questioningly, Shoto and Izuku merely laughing at Denki's enthusiasm. "Well, I suppose it's settled then," Ida stated as he and Shiro began to follow after the Omega. Momo then squeezed the two other gods' shoulders, giving them both a reassuring smile. "Do not fear, you two, you both will be amazing fathers one day. Now let's go," Momo commanded as she walked after the group. Both Kirishima and Bakugo then looked at each other before smiling. "Let's get this road trip started."